Hey everyone, welcome back to Shigaraki. Today we have an amazing story on what if Deku was chosen by the Omnitrix and unlocked every alien evolution. If you enjoy these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps the channel grow now. Let's jump straight into the video. Azimuth of Galvan Prime, greatest mind of multiple galaxies, had entrusted his greatest creation in the hands of a teenage boy. The Omnitrix, a device capable of great feats that no other had ever before seen. It was designed to allow the user to walk in the footsteps of over 1 million different sentient species. Though many didn't see it that way, it was seen as a weapon, a way to win a battle or war with the many abilities stored within each alien. He didn't create the Omnitrix to provoke war, but to prevent it. Not many knew the hidden purpose of his device. It was more than a peacekeeping option. It was the final option to preserve life. The Hybrid, a race of ancient aliens who believed themselves superior just for denying evolution and change to their species. In their pride, they waged war across the stars, seeking to stomp out all life that wasn't their own. They had invaded his home planet, one of the most fortified places in this sector of the universe. Now, they had invaded Earth, the very planet that held the Omnitrix on the wrist of a young man. Ben Tennyson, who when first found the Omnitrix was arrogant, selfish, and stupid compared to many members of the human race. Before Azimuth could plan on taking the Omnitrix away from the boy, he proved time and time again that it could be used to not just promote peace, but protect it. So, against his better judgment, he let the young, hairless ape run around with it. He had to step in when the largest threat to the universe's survival was coming for him. Azimuth told Ben about the role the Omnitrix was built for, to be a Noah's Ark for all life if the Hybrid posed too large of a threat to everyone else. Ben, being the confident teenager he was, refused to give up the Omnitrix, arguing it was the best thing they had to stop the invasion. With no way to see himself winning an argument against someone so stupid but brave, he granted him total control of all functions of the Omnitrix to aid in his endeavors. Yet when the battle came, he exhausted the battery quickly, passed out, used brute force against another problem, got them captured, and didn't think to use the Omnitrix's features that could have prevented many of these things. Now, he followed Ben to the very council of the Hybrid. The boy's efforts were admirable, truly worthy of possessing the Omnitrix as he thought only to save instead of destroy. But it wasn't enough in Azimuth's eyes. Ben seemed to have lost the creativity he had in his younger days, using either words or fists to solve his problems. Against all odds, he ended up bringing his creation on the homeworld of the invading race. This had gone on long enough. Bentenshon. Azimuth called out to the boy who was transformed into a Vaxasaurian. Not now, Azimuth. We're almost there, and I don't need a reminder about. Would you just listen for once instead of punching your way through everything? The older Galvan snapped at him. Ben stopped, transforming back into his human form in a flash of green light. His cousin Gwen and friend Kevin stopped next to him. What is it, Azimuth, the smarter cousin? Gwen asked, noticing the change in Azimuth's tone. He didn't sound panicked, scared, or worried. He sounded absolute in his words with no room for argument. Azimuth looked amongst them. Truly they would be fine allies in this last hour. I hope you would have proved me wrong many times today about letting you keep the Omnitrix, but so far you have shown nothing of the sort. Ben grew visibly concerned, taking a few steps back to Azimuth. What are you saying? Kevin answered before the Galvan could. It means he's giving up and taking our best weapon with him. Ben was silent with shock before turning back to Azimuth. Is that true? Gwen came to Ben's side distraught. You can't turn your back on us now. We're so close to stopping this. Azimuth narrowed his eyes at the three. Then, this is your last chance to prove those words. What is your plan to stopping the invasion that already reached your world? Kevin stomped on the floor, tried to intimidate the smaller being. We go up to their leader, take him hostage, and get them to call off the invasion. Azimuth was not amused by that response, merely keeping his eyes locked on Ben. Gwen to the side placed a hand on her cousin's shoulder as he stood there with his head hung low. Well, Ben Tennyson, Is that really your plan? Gwen tried to say some words to encourage the boy. Come on, Ben. Tell us you have a plan to stop them. He faced her, turmoil dancing in his eyes. Ben had no idea what he was planning to do. He just expected to know when he showed up. That's what always worked. Either something new came to life for them to win, or someone else stepped in. He wasn't a soldier or a tactician. He was a hero. But he never really knew what kind of hero he wanted to be, did he? Kevin grabbed Ben's shoulder with a literal iron grip, enraged at what's happening. You seriously thinking about giving him the Omnitrix? We can still win, we can still fight. Ben looked between Kevin, Gwen, and Azimuth. He didn't know what to do. Someone else always had an answer when he didn't. If only Grandpa were here. If you're going to make a choice, make it fast. Clock's ticking. A newcomer said, dressed in a lab coat and goggles, carrying a pocket watch in hand. Azimuth took that as his answer. There was only one reason he was here, and he already spoke to the Time Walker about if the worst should come. Ben walked past everyone and focused on the only source of hope, the man who could literally know what to do by seeing what would happen. Professor Paradox, please tell me you came with good news. The man just sighed in disappointment. I'm afraid not, Ben. I'm only here to make sure the Omnitrix is sent somewhere safe. That was it. That was his answer, and it crushed Ben. Gwen herself realized how bad things had gotten and grabbed onto Kevin, not knowing how long they had. Kevin put an arm around Gwen and scowled at the two adults. You're really going to call it quits, Tennyson? Ben's voice cracked as he gripped the Omnitrix, his lifeline, the thing that kept him and so many others safe. Do I have any other choice? Azimuth answered simply, no. Omnitrix, decouple. The watch on Ben's wrist retracted the band and detached from his arm. The boy now held what was supposed to be the solution to saving everyone, to saving his friends, Grandpa, Mom, and Dad. Julie. Professor Paradox put a comforting hand on Ben's shoulder and held his other hand out. Kevin tried to approach and swipe the device himself, but Gwen held him back. For what it's worth, Ben, the Omnitrix is never what made you a hero. It was your willingness to go beyond what others thought possible to save people. The time traveler finished with a gentle smile, making Ben feel only slightly better but still devastated. He lifted his arm, the weight of the Omnitrix increasing every inch he moved his hand away from himself. Unintentionally, his grip tightened as it hovered over Paradox's own, shaking from the effort to not letting it go. He gave one last look to Kevin and Gwen, the two best friends he could have asked for that stuck by his side. Ben's personal world felt like it was crashing down on itself. The adventures, the sacrifices, all the fun they had along the way. It was over now, and at that thought, he let his grip loose for the Omnitrix to fall into the professor's hand. His fingers dragged across the faceplate as he backed away. In a desire to receive some sort of comfort, he stood next to Kevin and Gwen, all of them watching the professor spare one last glance to Azimuth. Are you sure you don't want to come with me? Azimuth shook his head. I'm afraid I would intervene too much in the affairs of the Omnitrix if I were to go with it. I will stay here and accept my fate with the rest of the universe. Professor Paradox nodded, then returned his gaze to Ben. You should count yourself lucky, Ben, for you have made more allies than you realize who would do anything to help. He finished with a wink, making Ben pause at the random comment. Before he could question the meaning behind those words, Professor Paradox had vanished, leaving them to deliver the Omnitrix to somewhere farther away than they could imagine. Sniff! A small boy wiped away the wetness coming from his nose, staining his hand red. He was covered in burns, bruises, and a black eye. His green eyes were puffy, the whites a shade of light red, as tears threatened to spill out again. The messy forest on his head was dirty, a portion of it singed and going the opposite direction, making him look worse. His name was Izuku Midoriya, and it was this day he gave up being a hero. Too many times has he tried to help, only for him to be shunned away. His only friend, Bakugo, always called him out when he expressed his desire to follow his dreams or talk about heroes. Today was a bad day. In particular, Bakugo and two kids that followed him around were hurting another kid with a quirk that let them draw in the air. Izuku hoped that they were just playing rough, But when the kid cried out for anyone to help, Izuku found his legs moving on their own to the chaos. He stood between the two parties, willing to defend the kid on the ground. That was until he heard what the drawing kid said. "I'd rather die than you try to help me." It didn't matter if he tried to do something a hero would. He always made it worse. While those words were making Izuku freeze, Bakugo and his followers started to hurt Izuku, practicing their quirks on him. They even invited the other kid to join, who looked way too happy at the chance. Now Izuku had to find out how to hide his injuries from his mom. He didn't want Kaken to get in trouble. He was going to be the best hero ever after all. Anyone who tried to ruin the reputation of a hero was always a villain. The boy kicked his legs over the dirt cliff, looking down below to see the leaves blown gently by the wind and the sharp rocks down below. All the kids were warned to never play in this part of the large woodland park, but this is where he could escape for the purpose of being alone. If he were to accidentally fall down, how long would it take for someone to find him? How long would it take for someone to care to look for him? After all, no one, not even his own mother, expected anything to come of someone who's quirkless. "My, you certainly don't look very good. Did your classmates play a little too rough?" Izuku spun his head around and stared at the stranger. He didn't sound or look Japanese, but he was dressed kind of like a doctor. Rubbing his eyes, he confirmed that the man was not a figment of his imagination. Professor Paradox pulled one of his hands from his pocket and gave the boy a little wave. "Hello, Izuku. Or do you normally go by your last name, strangers here? Always hard to adjust your manners when everyone has a different idea on what is polite and impolite, especially across the multiverse." Izuku wasn't sure how he should feel that a foreign stranger knew his name. Or is it Deku? You seem to always have that name floating around you. Professor Paradox noted aloud. Izuku sunk his head to look back to the ground again. "You can call me Deku. All my friends call me that." Paradox hummed, thoughts about how to approach the subject running through his mind. Well, he had infinite attempts at hand. "And why do they call you that?" "It means useless, because I'm quirkless." Calling someone useless just because they have something you don't, they don't really sound like friends to me, but bullies, the man said with a concerning frown. Izuku, though, was getting more and more curious about the man who appeared knowing his name. "Have we met?" "Yes, well, I have met you before, but this is your first time meeting me. I'm Professor Paradox, but you can just think of me as a man who just wants to help." Izuku's eyes lit up a little more at those last words. "You mean you're a hero?" The professor chuckled. "Not in the way you're thinking." "Oh." The disappointment in the man not being a pro hero was clear in Izuku's tone. "Am I less of a person for not being a professional hero?" Paradox asked genuinely. Izuku shook his head, stopping when he felt a headache coming. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. You're the only person who wants to talk to me after learning I'm quirkless." Yes, the world can be quite cruel to the young and ambitious. The man let out a sigh and sat next to the poor boy. They sat in silence, watching the wind shake the trees in a calming rhythm. "How old are you?" he asked randomly. "I'm 10. "Ah, a fitting time for the power of the most powerful device in the universe." Paradox chuckled, feeling the device in his pocket. "Tell me, Midoriya, if you were given strength, powers that made everyone jealous, what would you do?" The young boy got slightly excited, a twinkling in his eye. "I'd be a hero, but I don't think I can do that." "Well, what do heroes do that you want to do?" Midoriya paused, looking up at the strange man. No one ever asked that question, even in interviews he watched online. Who didn't want to be a hero? They were the coolest. But none were more cool than All Might to the boy, someone who could save people with a smile of confidence that said everything is all right. Paradox smiled, hearing the words that the boy said as he muttered to himself. "So, you want to help people and give them assurance that things will be okay. Is that right?" Midoriya stopped, blushing at his own inability to keep his mouth shut. Paradox ruffled his hand in an uninjured spot on the boy's head. "It's a very fine dream. You don't even have to be a professional hero to achieve it. From our meeting, I'm sure you can achieve that desire." Izuku's eyes locked onto the man's. He was serious. This man believed in him. His words were strange, though. How could he be a hero and not be a hero? All of a sudden, the man pulled out a strange-looking device. It was green, round, and had a silver ring with a glowing hourglass symbol in the center. Before he could ask, Paradox spoke. "I'd like you to have this, Midoriya. It's a very special tool I was asked to look after." "What's so special about it?" The man smirked. "Would you believe me if I told you aliens were real?" Izuku looked back down. He couldn't really say he thought about it before much. While there hasn't been clear evidence of them, to his knowledge, there hasn't been anything to disprove them either. Some people think that's how quirks came to be in the first place. Maybe they could have met them if they were able to focus their efforts on exploring space instead of putting laws on quirks that spark tons of conflict. So, while he didn't really believe in aliens, he did not believe in aliens. Good answer. Midoriya felt he really should learn how to think more quietly. The professor then turned the dial on it a few times, a hologram projecting over 100 different-looking people. Midoriya thought they were mutation quirks, but they all looked way too different than the ones he's seen. They really did look strange. Where I just came from, a universe was being taken over by a race that believed themselves to be better than everyone else because of their birth. A clever person made this device, the Omnitrix, to preserve the DNA of over 1 million different sentient species. It's a databank of all sorts of people, some strong, others smarter, others more simple, but each were equally important to be remembered. The professor then deactivated the hologram, all the figures zipping back to the hourglass symbol. He then outstretched it over to Izuku. "Even if you don't believe me now, I believe you," Izuku said with as much energy as a 10-year-old could muster. Paradox certainly didn't expect that. "While I appreciate the trust, why do you believe a stranger so easily?" "Because you must be an alien or at least a different world. You talk funny about weird things and you don't act like people here. So you must be from somewhere really far." Izuku finished. He really was liking this boy. "Then will you keep it safe, use it to help people?" Midoriya nodded his head with enthusiasm, making the professor lose any sense of doubt in the boy. "It's yours then, and yours alone. And if anyone says that you're useless, just remember that out of everyone on Earth, I picked you." He then held out the device, Izuku looking at it in awe for a few seconds before reaching his hand out. The Omnitrix hovered a few inches in the air, then landed on the boy's wrist, a green and black band encircling it to keep it in place. New user Izuku Midoriya accepted. Omnitrix functions locked to user's genetic code. A voice spoke from it. Professor Paradox was reminded by the voice of the previous holder. That version of Ben had a lot of work to do to help his universe. It would be significantly harder without the Omnitrix, but he believed in the teen. Professor Paradox got up from his spot, pulling out his pocket watch to double-check his next destination. "Where are you going?" Midoriya asked, getting up himself to follow the man. The more accurate question to ask is when, but in some irony, I have little time left until my next task. Keeping the multiverse in check is certainly a busy job. But, word of advice, if anyone calls you Deku again, think of me saying right here, right now. Izuku's eyes sparkled as he watched the man grin at him, the wind blowing his hair ever so slightly and the sun gleaming off his goggles. "You can do it, for that is the truth behind your name." He then vanished before the boy's eyes. Izuku was left in admiration for the unknown man. He looked back at his wrist, the new device glowing softly with the energy of millions of species within it. Out of everyone, he was picked to keep it safe, to preserve worlds of civilizations. Even if Izuku didn't focus on being a pro-hero anymore, he felt he was given a new task. Find a way for him to help people his way. Now he just had to get home. Paradox watched the time stream of this particular Izuku Midoriya, smiling fondly at how he would grow and progress and help so many. His life certainly wouldn't get easier, but he would gain wonderful allies and find new ways to use the Omnitrix than many other Bens had. Hopefully Azimuth wouldn't find out he left the master control on. "I'm home," Izuku announced, beaming with happiness. He glanced back down at the Omnitrix, excited to find out all the different ways he could help people. His mother's footsteps echoed from around the corner as she greeted him. "Welcome home, Izuku. My gosh, my baby. What happened to you?" Oh, he forgot. He was still beaten to a bloody pulp today. Without warning, his mother picked him up and gently placed him in the car. He had to remind her to close the front door to their house. Inko Midoriya simply going into mother mode and rushing him to the hospital. Izuku felt uncomfortable as she kept asking over and over how he had gotten hurt. So many times he had gone to teachers, or the teachers saw Bakugo do it, but told him he was just like that. Kakin was going OT be a hero. So how could he make him seem like they don't really sound like friends to me, but bullies? The words of the man rang through his head. Was Bakugo a bully? He was his friend, though. But the alien man said that he wasn't his friend. Looking at his watch, he recalled how the man trusted him with so much. He should put the same trust in him as well. You don't get burns from tripping Izuku. And don't say they're rug burns, because no rug. Was she talking this whole time? He was thinking without his mouth this time. Mom, by his tone, Inko stopped talking, looking in the rearview mirror to see her son. "I think I'm being bullied." It was a mother's fear to discover that their child had been hurting while they were blind or unable to do anything to help. Inko failed her son once when he asked if he could be a hero, but not again. She was going to help her son. "Who is it?" she said with restrained anger. Izuku could feel the shift of her mood and didn't want to say any more, hoping the anger would go away. "Izuku, I need to know. If someone's being a bully to you, they need to be told to stop. Otherwise, they'll keep doing it even when they grow up." Even when they grow up, Izuku didn't want Kakin to be like this forever. It was Kakin. Inko feared that the boy was a little too rough, but to hear him being a bully, she had to talk to Mitsuki about this. Before she could ask any more, Izuku continued. But everyone else does it too. He just hurts me more than the other kids in class and the teachers." Inko's breathing could be heard through her nose, her fingers clutching the steering wheel as if it was the throats of those incompetent adults. Izuku felt like he said too much, but for Inko, it was enough. She was going to sue that school so hard the building would be forced to close from no one wanting to work there again. Finally, after nearly running off 5 cars from her path, they made it to the local children's hospital. And at night, be sure to put more cream on and replace the bandages. The doctor finished putting away her tools. "Thank you so much for helping my son." Inko gave a small bow. "But can I get a list of his injuries?" "I can do that," the doctor said, clicking at his computer. He then glanced over to the boy who was patched with all sorts of hero-themed bandages. He was listing each hero, their quirk, their agency stats, and all sorts of things. Then the doctor noticed the peculiar watch the boy wore. "Say, I'm not married," Inko said quickly. Right. Well, I was just curious where you got your son that watch. Is it themed after a certain hero? My husband collects them, and I've never seen one like that before." Watch, Inko asked before looking at her son. Sure enough, the boy was wearing a new watch, but she didn't know where it came from. "Izuku, sweetie." "Yes, Mom," he asked with a smile. Inko was touched at the joy of her son. Somehow he was just so happy today. Happier than he had been in a long time. "Where did you get that watch? I don't think you got that from one of your birthdays." Izuku was put on the spot, fidgeting at realizing he didn't really know how to explain it. But he trusted his mom, and the doctor was really nice, even if she knew he was quirkless. "Someone found me after I got hurt and gave it to me. While not the complete truth, it felt good enough." He didn't want to try and convince adults aliens were real. "Did you know them?" Inko asked with some discipline in her tone. Izuku shuddered, rarely hearing that voice. And no. After a few moments of eyeing her boy, she sighed. It was probably a stranger trying to make her son feel better after seeing him injured. "May I see it?" Inko asked, holding out her hand. Izuku held his arm out, allowing the woman to touch it. His mother eyed it from all angles, getting more and more confused. "It doesn't even tell the time. How does it come off?" Izuku didn't know, but he didn't want to find out. He was supposed to protect it. After all, the doctor got curious enough and wheeled herself over on her cushioned stool. "May I?" the woman asked. Inko moved out of the way, and the doctor held the object. Once she did, her eyes glowed a strange color. the same way they did when she looked at his injuries. After a few seconds, the doctor gasped, startling the two of them. What is it?" Inko asked, worried. "I think this watch was the result from someone's quirk," she said, grabbing a notepad and writing a few things down. "Wait, what kind of quirk is it? Deadly? Is he dying?" No, nothing like that," the doctor assured her. Now, with more curiosity, she grabbed a special eyeglass tool and looked at the watch through it. Then, "What is it?" Inko asked again, rubbing her hand against Izuku's back to comfort him. "Well, whatever it is, don't try taking it off. It looks like it's a case of PQE." "And what is that?" "Permanent Kiefgefekt. It's rare, but sometimes when people get hit by a quirk, it does something to permanently change their lives. Like turning someone blue, or giving them an extra eye. One case I dealt with was someone was now growing hair from all their pores." "Oh, should we be worried?" Inko asked again. The doctor scooted back and rubbed her head. "I don't think so, but you can never be too sure. While it is a part of him, now, like another arm, it has technical components to it, so it might do something we're not aware of. I'll put it on his record, so he can be looked up in case security gives him trouble, and a card he can keep on his person." She rolled to her computer and typed a couple of things in. Once finished, she spun around and looked at the two. "Your papers you can get at the front desk next to where you checked in. They'll discuss how and when he'll get an ID card for his PQE. Thank you again for your help." Inko bowed and grabbed her son's hand. The two walked out of the room and down the hall. As they moved, a troubled man with dark hair walked with a similar-looking boy without hair in a wheelchair in front of him. They looked related, but the boy seemed very pale, hardly any muscle on him. Izuku didn't like seeing anyone like that. Hoping to cheer him up, he pulled his mother in their direction. Inko tried to steer Izuku away, worried what he might say to a boy with cancer. "Izuku, let's not bother them." Izuku stopped and looked back to her mother. But he looked sad. Inko's heart felt a little heavy. How was someone supposed to randomly try and cheer up someone who was so sick? Judging the look on the man, he looked without hope. It was too soon to teach her son the full situation. "I know, but sometimes you can't help. You can do it, for that is the truth behind your name." Izuku's mind circled around those words. He can help, he can do it. Ignoring his mother, he let go of her hand and approached the two. Putting on his best all-might smile, he waved to the boy. "Hi, my name is." "Genetic damage detected." The Omnitrix spoke. That didn't sound good. Izuku wanted to fix the damage. Everyone stopped to look at the source of the noise. Inko herself was slightly worried about what the words meant. "Wah." "Skre." The Omnitrix glowed brightly, a massive flash of light blinding everyone. When the others recovered their eyesight, Inko dashed over to grab her son. "I'm so sorry about that," he was just. "I have hair again," the boy in the wheelchair said, touching the black locks on his head. His father had his jaw hung open, looking at his son. His skin had color. His limbs weren't skinny twigs anymore. He looked like he was never sick. "How do you feel?" he asked. The boy looked at his legs and hopped to the wheelchair with ease. His mouth turned into a massive, pointy-toothed grin as he turned to face his dad. "I feel super awesome." He spun to face the other kid his age. "You cured me. That was super manly." Izuku was unsure of how to handle the praise, so he instead shyly looked down at his shoes. He was suddenly enveloped in a back-breaking hug. Thank you so much for saving my son," the man bawled to the boy, stretching out his other arm to pull in his son and squeeze the new life out of him. Izuku looked at the boy with awe. The Omnitrix didn't just store DNA. It could fix it. He looked to his mother, beaming with happiness. "Look, Mom, I helped him. I can help people without a quirk. I can't believe it. His cells have been rewritten down to the last chromosome," the woman said, examining some blood. The doctor was just about to try and get everything sorted for Izuku Midoriya and his new condition, but when they rushed back with two others right behind them and telling her what happened, it seemed impossible. Picking back up the file, Eijiro Kirishima was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. His quirk, hardening, let the small tumor become dangerously inoperable due to it being incredibly sharp and durable to all sorts of treatments. It was so hard to believe this was the same child. Even if he looked like photos from before his cancer, the DNA was too different for him to be the same. But a blood sample from the father proved her wrong again. They were clearly related, and she doubted they had a twin that they were pranking her with. So now she had both families waiting as she tried to confirm this with the Kirishima family's doctor. Dr. Yamamoto, is this real? The cancer specialist asked, looking at another MRI photo of last week and today. They even went as far as to do full tests on the boys and parents to confirm everything. But out of fear for what this could mean for them, they kept it from the rest of the staff. I'm having a hard time believing it, but everything we've done shows it. Eijiro Kirishima is completely cured down to the last cell. She spoke, scooting back and wiping some of her hair out of her eyes. I don't know if I call it completely cured. The other doctor said, looking at another sheet of paper. What do you mean? Since his cancer derived from his quirk, I double-checked it to see if he was at risk of the same thing later on. He said, looking distraught, reading the information on it. Dr. Yamamoto leaned towards him, invested in what he could be talking about. And what did you find? It's what I didn't find that's frightening. He handed the paper over. Yamamoto read it, then read it again and again, becoming more wide-eyed as she looked over it. Quirk factor none. Whatever that kid did, not just removed the cancer, it removed his quirk. Dr. Yamamoto, in shock at the news, put the paper to the side and placed her face in her hands. The prospect of getting a cure for something that the human race battled for so long was too good to be true. How many people would try and silence them once news reached out that someone could heal them at the price of a quirk? Did they even need to be sick for Midoriya to eliminate their quirk? We need to burn it. She snapped up. What? Burn any evidence of Eijiro being quirkless now. I can just say that we suppressed his quirk to fight the cancer. He left her with that as he grabbed document after document and tucking it into his personal bag. What about Izuka Midoriya? Just warn him not to do that ever again, otherwise he'd be locked up. She shot up from her chair. We can't just threaten the kid. We're not threatening him. We're protecting him. He calmly said back, I'll let the Kirishima family know the truth, but warn them of the consequences if the information gets out. You handle the Midoriyas. Before she could think to counter his words, he already left. I'm quirkless now, Eijiro asked, sitting with his father. This day was turning out to be a roller coaster. He was given an estimated month to live, made a friend who cured him, and now he's told it came with a price. Yes, the doctor began. But you shouldn't let anyone know. Just tell them we suppressed your quirk to cure your cancer. Wait, the father interrupted. Does the boy know this? Izuka Midoriya, he should be informed about it and warned never to do it again, so don't worry. If he does, he could face devastating consequences. The doctor said before looking at his watch. I'd give you something to read for more details, but we can't afford to have any proof of what happened here. I hope things go well for the both of you. He got from his seat and left the two alone. Eijiro looked at his hands and tried to harden them, but nothing happened. He really was quirkless now, okay, but he was alive and healthy. That should be a good thing. A glance at his father, who looked terrible, said otherwise. Dad. He looked at his son. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have let him get close to you. But he made me healthy again. Eijiro was getting more and more confused. His father shook his head. Do you remember seeing that boy all bandaged up? Yeah. His father sighed. His son was too good for this world. Well, from what his mother said, he was hurt by other kids because he's quirkless. Eijiro jumped from the examination mat. But that's just wrong. He didn't choose to be quirkless. You're right. He patted Eijiro's head. It is wrong to hurt others for the way they are born, but people who do that don't see quirkless as people. Eijiro clenched his fists. He was angry. He never got angry. But thinking about how people were being mean to someone who saved his life for something out of his control made him angrier every second he thought about it. Doesn't he have any friends to help him? He asked through his gritted, sharp teeth. His father shook his head. Not this boy, I'm afraid. Then I'll be his friend, Eijiro shouted with new determination. I'll be his friend, even if he's quirkless. If someone tries to hurt him again, I'll protect him. Even if you're quirkless, now his father asked. Eijiro nodded, making his father smile. Then, I guess I'll just have to talk to his mother about arranging a play date. Why yes, Ijiro shouted with his fists raised. Mr. Kirishima always thought it was funny how much energy his son put into everything. But maybe that kind of dedication is what he needed to get through his new life as someone who can't use a quirk. Before he could ponder more, Ijiro charged out of the door and running in the halls. Midoriya, let's be friends. Ijiro ran straight to where he last saw the other boy. When he saw the mother and son duo walk out of a room, looking sad, they looked up to see him. Inko was looking at the boy with surprise, but Izuku didn't dare to look. He had to when Ijiro tackled him into the ground in a bear hug. Izuku, are you alright? Inko asked. Why yes, but... Midoriya, Ijiro shouted from on top the boy. Let's be friends. Ijiro, don't hurt the boy more than he already is, Mr. Kirishima shouted, catching up. Oh right, sorry. Ijiro got up and helped Izuku onto his feet. Izuku grabbed his shirt, trying to overcome his natural shyness, and look at the other kid. Don't you hate me now? No way you heal me. I don't care if I don't have a quirk now. I get to run around, eat ice cream, and make more friends. As Ijiro began to list all the things he could do again, all the things he looked forward to in life, Inko felt tears prickle at her eyes. She expected this day to be horrible. Izuku being hurt, finding out about his bullies, and the mysterious watch stuck on him that took another kid's quirk. But her son was making a new friend, a good friend who saw good in her son. Midoriya. Oh yes, sorry, I was just watching them. You've raised your son well. She complimented the other father, who chuckled in reply. Thank you, but I'll have to give credit to his mother. Ijiro just got so excited about being your boy's friend after I said I'd talk to you about a playdate. Inko began to lighten up, but it vanished. Maybe in the future, but not anytime soon. I gotta transfer Izuku out of school, but I don't know where else he won't find bullies. I don't know if he'd ever find a school that had no bullies, Mr. Kirishima said in a sad tone, but then gave her a smile and pointed to the two boys. But maybe one of some good friends. You want a donut? Detective Tsukachi looked up from his folder. In his doorway was one of his officers holding the stereotypical treat in a napkin. Seriously? Is that a no? The detective ignored him, looking back to his work. The officer approached, munching on the denied goodie. He chewed loudly, obnoxiously, and it was really getting on the detective's nerves. What is it? Oh, just got a report from a mother about a bullied son. Wanted us to do something about it. Then tell her to talk to the other kid's parents. She's blaming the whole school, says teachers were involved. Tsukachi actually was intrigued by that. Not often were teachers involved in cases like that. Unless... Before you ask, detective, yes, it's a quirkless case. You always seem to grab those when you can. You could lead with that next time. Sure, next time. I sent you the email with all the info on it. The officer waved as he walked out the door. Detective Tsukachi turned to his computer to access said email. His connection to a friend who used to live quirkless got him invested in those cases. It really exposed him to how cruel people can be, and he wanted to stop it. All he needed was a little evidence, and he could officially interview anybody he felt at the school. A medical report showing injuries resulting in quirks, yep, that will do. He should probably contact the mother about being able to talk to the boy on his side to get a perspective from the victim. But this was a quirkless case. He had to get the offenders as quick as possible to admit guilt. And no one can admit guilt like lying about the truth. His quirk, truth detection, was perfect for his work. Well, you have a ton of All Might toys. Do you have any other heroes? Ijiro asked in Izuku's room. It had been 2 months since they originally met. Izuku was pulled from school that day, talked to a few police guys, and they heard that the school closed down with lots of teachers getting in trouble. During that time, both had to get registered to a new school. Ijiro himself was behind because of his constant stay at hospitals, but his father had helped him get caught up. Both were about to start a new school year together, and with lots of chaos out of the way, he could visit the boys' home. I have a couple, but All Might's my favorite, Izuku said, pulling out his toy box. Each figure was tucked into its own little spot for easy organization and to preserve quality. Ijiro was amazed. He just dumped his toys in a chest or left them around. When he had a quirk, he kept accidentally breaking them, But now he didn't have to worry as much, but the way Izuku somehow kept his toys from getting scratched, he wanted to be extra careful. Izuku grabbed one of his limited edition fully articulate All Might figures with built-in laughing voice box. This is the one I usually like to play with. He can move his body around, so I can make him do any pose from TV. Izuku bounced around, excited to see what toy Aijiro would pick out. When Aijiro went to grab one, Izuku couldn't hold it in. That's the Crimson Riot specially manufactured festival edition. They made it so when you apply heat to his hair, it changes black, just like his quirk in real life. That's so awesome. Aijiro rubbed his finger against the plastic. Sure enough, it began to turn black. Izuku nodded his head eagerly. Yeah, when they had a whole festival with the new top 10 pros a while ago, they made exclusive festivals to sell there. My mom found it at a garage sale and bought it for super cheap. Lucky they don't have a lot of Crimson Riot toys anymore, Aijiro said, turning the toy over in his hands. I can't wait to be a hero like him one day. The shark-toothed boy looked up from his toy. Izuku had a notebook in hand, writing furiously. Where did he get that thing? What kind of hero are you going to be? Will you focus on first responder operations, rescue, investigative work, underground, undercover patrol, takedowns without a kirkatude bahar tojit involved directly with villains, without impressive at training, some maybe some supportatum swood help with thought you? Izubro, you okay? Aijiro asked, patting the boy's shoulder. How Izuku's eyes focused on Aijiro. Then he immediately blushed. Sorry, I kind of get excited thinking about heroes. That's okay, I totally get it. Heroes get me super pumped. Aijiro then flexed his muscles. I want to be a hero that stops all the bad guys from hurting people. The hidden meaning behind those words didn't get past Izuku, who looked down with guilt. He really wished that his friend didn't have to lose his quirk to be healed. When he got a chance to talk to the Omnitrix alone, it just kept saying quirks were unstable parts of the DNA. So in the eyes of his watch, it viewed quirks as a defect in human biology. But there were plenty of aliens that had cool powers. Weren't those the same as quirks? Your quirk would have been perfect for that, Izuku muttered, but Aijiro wasn't having it. A real man would do it with or without a quirk. And I'm a real man, and you're a real man. We're 10. We're the manliest 10-year-olds. Izuku laughed at his friend's antics. Aijiro always put 100% into everything he did. If he wanted to be a pro hero, Izuku would help him with that. Maybe you could be a hero like Gang Orca. He has a bunch of people in his agency with all sorts of quirks to use. Aijiro got excited at the idea. Yeah, an army of manly men doing manly things. But you'd have to be recognized first. Gang Orca was able to build his agency by putting himself out there and making connections to get people right away once he debuted. You'll have to do the same. Izuku went and grabbed a different notebook from a shelf with tons of them lined up. Now that he was less invested on trying to be a pro himself, he was able to focus on his analyzing hobby. Flipping to the details of Gang Orca's career, he spouted off facts. He wasn't super popular. In fact, he is one of the most feared heroes for his scary looks. But he still did great in the sports festival and talked to just about any agency that would listen to his ideas. He started by making deals with people with compatible quirks and looks simple to make his image more appealing to the public. Usually he lets his team focus on doing work right next to civilians while he took out the villains. Izuku then pointed his pencil at Aijiro. You don't have a scary appearance, but we know people don't want quirkless heroes. They want strong ones like All Might. Aijiro laughed. Then I'll just have to get stronger. Izuku got up, seeing a similarity in the two, and pointed his pencil at Aijiro. Yes, you don't need to be able to punch buildings, but if they see you acting as strong as All Might, people will like you. Aijiro tilted his head, confused at the conflicting statement. Wait, I'm strong but not strong. Izuku nodded. Yet people like All Might for more than his muscles. He always acts tough, and no one can make his smile go away. If you show everyone how strong your heart is, you can get a team to help take on villains you can't do alone. It clicked in Aijiro's mind. Oh, I see. If I'm so manly, I can share with others to beat up villains. Not right, but not wrong. But we still need to figure out how you can fight basic villains to get followers. HM, you're right. Aijiro hummed, then started punching the air. I could get metal gloves and punch villains just as hard as when I had a quirk. Maybe I could have a suit of armor. Izuku got out a new notebook, started to scribble drawings of how Aijiro would fight. Are you going to be on my hero team? Izuku accidentally drew a dark line over his friend's face on the paper. He looked up at him, then back to the Omnitrix. Even if he could cure diseases, he was told to not do it, otherwise he could be locked away. How was he going to help people with it now? Sorry, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Izuku went back to writing, Aijiro circling around behind him to look at the words he was writing. Holy crap, Izuku was super smart. He even wrote down a bunch of agencies to look up that worked in teams. He recognized one of them was the Wild Pussycats. Man, you got a lot of ideas. I don't know how I'd be a hero without your help. Izuku blushed at the praise. WL, I just noticed what worked with other agencies and how they get started and put together what if it would work with a wand. Aijiro patted the boy's shoulder. Don't worry, man. I'm just jealous of how smart you are. Hey, do you think when I get into high school, you could help me be a hero? Izuku's eyes widened. Someone asked for his help, of course he'd give it. Yeah. While you learn how to fight villains and save people, I'll figure out how to get you noticed and build a team. You could make money by helping heroes know how to do their job better, Aijiro shouted. Like a business consultant, my mom says they hire people to help figure out new ideas to do better at her job. I don't understand what exactly they do, but it sounds super awesome. Izuku looked back to his notebook. It was true. He did have a lot of ideas on how heroes could run their agencies better, work with others, reroute their patrols, and so on. Maybe he could help people by helping the heroes do better. Wait, the Omnitrix has a bunch of superpowered aliens inside it. Maybe if he understood how the aliens use their powers, he could help heroes on how to use their quirks better. Kids, do you want to go to the park? Inko asked from just outside the door. Yes, Izubro. Let's go see if we can find other kids who want to join my hero team. You can help me figure out which ones will be best, Aijiro said, already grabbing the boy's wrist, and pulled him along. Aijiro was pulling Izuku from kid to kid, trying to figure out their quirks and how they could be awesome heroes with him. But once those kids found out they were quirkless, it went downhill from there. No one bothered to play with them. No one even wanted to be around them. But Aijiro was determined and kept trying over and over again. Wait here, Izuku. When I find someone who's not mean, I'll bring them over. Izuku nodded, sitting on the park bench and writing ideas on how he could help Aijiro get good publicity. They all seemed excited, until they found out they were quirkless. Even with the weak excuse that Aijiro had one, but couldn't use, it didn't satisfy them. Maybe they should keep it a secret. They loved Aijiro's personality. He could focus on that. But what heroes were able to keep their quirks secret? Everyone knew every hero's quirk. Each one had done interviews and talked about their quirks. Even All Might was asked about it every interview, and he told them it was wait, what was All Might's quirk? Maybe Night Eye talked about it, but he hardly did interviews, and when they asked about how his quirk worked, he didn't answer. Maybe they could keep it a secret that Aijiro didn't have a quirk. All they had to do was have him do something that was like a quirk. Putting his fingers on the Omnitrix, he fiddled with it again and scrolled through the list of aliens. He couldn't get all the details on how heroes fought, but with the Omnitrix, he basically had a list of heroes he could know anything about. Which ones seemed to use human-like traits that matched Aijiro's style? No, he was living fire, didn't have eyes, he was. Izuku sighed, looking at the one labeled Petrosapien. It was so similar to how Aijiro would have used his quirk. Both were able to utilize defense as offense. You're quirkless, why the hell do you think you could be a hero? No. Midoriya hesitantly looked up. Aijiro had just tried talking to his childhood friend/bully. Come on, I've got a buddy who's going to make me into an awesome hero. We could be the best hero team out there, Aijiro reasoned with enthusiasm to Bakugo, but his words just made him even more angry. I'm not going to pair up with some useless extra. I'm going to be the next number one. Better than All Might, he's the strongest, because he can do everything by himself, and that's what I'm going to do. Who gave you the bright idea? You could even be a hero. My best friend Aijiro then pointed at Izuku, who froze when the blonde saw him. Izuku desperately looked around to find his mother, who told him to never go near the boy again. He couldn't see her, and Bakugo was already charging at him. Deku, you got me grounded. How am I supposed to go Yua in now when you stain my record, you useless son of a by his palm ignited at the boy. Izuku shielded himself with his arms. He heard the blast, but it didn't sting at all. Peeking through his arms, he saw the horrific sight. Aijiro had blocked the attack, getting hurt himself. His friend coughed and glared back at Bakugo. That wasn't very manly. You think you can take me on then? Try it. Quirkless Bakugo sent another explosion, knocking Aijiro to the side. Izuku rushed to his best friend, trying to pull him away from Bakugo. The violent blonde had other ideas. Seeing how hurting Izuku got him in trouble last time, he'd hurt his friend instead. Izuku got in his way, standing with his arms to his sides and shaking in place. I'm not letting you hurt my friend. Like you can do anything about it, Bakugo with one arm pushed Izuku to the ground, his other sparking. Aijiro rolled to be over Izuku, shielding him from another blast. Other kids gathered around, watching the boy use his flashy quirk. A few adults grew concerned. While they knew kids could get rough playing with quirks, this was really pushing it. Izuku couldn't take it. His friend would have been able to easily tank the blast with his quirk. But he didn't have it anymore. Izuku took it away, and now he was hurting. He wished he could give it back, to give him his hardening. Then he could help him use it to protect people. Just like if he had the powers of the Petrosapien. The Omnitrix beeped with a small glow, letting Izuku focus on something that wasn't the noise of small explosions against flesh. Confirm, would you like to splice human and Petrosapien DNA in targeted human subject? Izuku would have asked more about what the watch was talking about, but he had no time. He needed to act now. And if the Omnitrix would help him help Kirishima better than he did, before he would use the chance. Yes, Izuku shouted, confusing Bakugo above the two boys. Izuku placed his hand with the Omnitrix against Kirishima. A bright flash of green light encompassed him just like before. Bakugo took a couple steps back, unsure of how to react to the light. It wasn't a quirk. Neither of them had quirks. The one extra said the doctors turned off his quirk to make him better. Was he lying to get attention and pity points? Aijiro stood up, looking over his arms. They were slightly more red than before and sparkled like diamonds in the sun. Aijiro, your hair. Ah crap, did he lose his hair again? He reached up to check if it was there. Clink. How did someone put a helmet on him? The rest of the kids were eyeing the kid who looked different than before. His hair was replaced with red crystals and sparkled with the rest of him. Oh, so that's your quirk, looking all pretty, Bakugo teased, prepping another pop at his hand. I bet you thought you didn't have to use your quirk to beat me. He slammed his palm against the burnt shirt of Aijiro. When the smoke cleared, he backed away. There were no burns whatsoever on him. Aijiro was starting to piece together what had happened and smiled brightly to Izuku. Izubro, I think you gave an upgrade to my quirk. Don't ignore me, Bakugo shouted and smacked him with another explosion, but Aijiro hardly felt anything and instead talked to Izuku. Are you okay, man? He said as Bakugo put another explosion to the side of Aijiro's head, who didn't notice it. Are you? Izuku asked, a little stunned at the display. Yeah, man. Aijiro flexed his new arms. I feel super manly. Get away from them, Inko shouted, running up to the three. Bakugo ignored the woman and kept trying to get a reaction out of Kirishima. Oh, hey, I got my quirk back, Aijiro shouted with glee, making the blonde angrier by his happiness. Inko saw how he wasn't hurting the boy and checked on Izuku's condition. His eyes were sparkling at Aijiro, who was easily handling Bakugo. Izuku would make sure he would do everything to help his friend be the best hero ever. After Inko finally managed to get the kids away from Bakugo, she called the detective who helped her before and explained what happened. She was assured that the boy would be punished severely and was offered a restraining order as an option. After plenty of begging from Bakugo's parents to not have something that would make her son's dream impossible, Inko instead took an option to move to somewhere else entirely. The Bakugos would simply pay for it. A trip to the doctors who helped them before made them incredibly nervous about what the watch did next. They couldn't get a DNA sample from Aijiro, but came up with a story to explain how his quirk evolved in a high-stress scenario. His father nearly crushed the floor with how much he bowed to Izuku for not only curing his son, but managed to give his quirk back. Aijiro was excited, talking about how the Midoriyas could move in their neighborhood, and they could practice his updated quirk as Izuku helped him. It was another exhausting event for all parties, but Inko began to worry about her son. He had been shown he can do another amazing thing, but was asked to keep it secret for their own safety again. Just how much would her son be excited for a new way to help people and get shot down? But Izuku sat in his room, eyeing the Omnitrix on his wrist, trying to figure out how to help more people with it. There were so many things about it he knew he didn't know about it. He should try to find smaller things it could do instead of altering people's DNA. He rotated the dial, scrolling back to the alien he merged with Aijiro. The interface reminded him of a computer, so he tried to find out if there were more tabs he could access with the alien before him to find more information. His thoughts manifested before him. Known abilities listed, how long they were around, where their planet was located in the other universe, a walk-around option. Wait, what did that do? The watch responded to his thoughts again, a light enveloping him quickly, overcoming his sight. Oof, Izuku landed on his stomach somewhere. What did that watch do this time? He looked up and saw he wasn't in his room before. Izuku was somewhere else entirely. Mountains of green crystal surrounded the horizon and made up the land. The sky wasn't blue, but clear enough to see the stars. 3 suns lit up the landscape, bringing light to his newfound area. Where did I go? What happened? He was panicking in the unfamiliar territory. Did the Omnitrix send him somewhere? He was just looking at the alien in the Omnitrix and sent. Wait, the alien was made of crystal. This place was made of crystal. Different land, different sky, different stars. The Omnitrix took him to the alien's planet. He would be geeking out over being on an alien world if he knew how to get home. Looking at the Omnitrix on his wrist, he tried to get answers. Where am I? Inside the Omnitrix's renderization of the Petrosapien home planet, Petropia. Inside the Omnitrix, does the Omnitrix have the worlds of each alien stored inside it? Wait, was he still in his room or inside the Omnitrix itself? The Omnitrix has an internal storage space that is capable of rendering a physical environment of downloaded worlds and species. The voice grounded him, keeping him from freaking out. This was way more than he thought any device was capable of. If that were the case, could the Omnitrix store an entire universe in it? Wait, how did he even manage to get here in the first place? He began to circle around the green, rocky ground as he muttered to himself. He didn't physically press anything to cause this, but when he thought about something, the Omnitrix acted. That must mean it's not just connected to his body, it's connected to his mind. He could do anything he did physically or verbally with the Omnitrix just by thinking it. Izuku's stomach growled, interrupting his thoughts. Okay, first things first, think about getting out. A green light enveloped his frame. When it dimmed, Izuku was sitting back in his room in the very spot he was before. Yes. Izuku, dinner will be ready in a little bit. Yes, Mom. There was so much he didn't know about the Omnitrix, but he was learning. One day, he would understand all the cool things he could do. Dude, this year is going to be awesome, Aijiro cheered with Izuku walking next to him. Each had on their backpacks and were making their way to a new school. Well, new to Izuku. Aijiro had gone here before, but had been absent for last year. Izuku's old school had been shut down, given how much his mother hammered the law against them. She ended up getting a lot of money from it. While he didn't know how much it was enough to get a brand, new clothes, no more thrift store clothes. Hello, more All Might t-shirts. Why is it going to be awesome? Izuku asked. He knew it would be awesome with a best friend, but he also had the Omnitrix, who knew what new things he could learn while he was at school that helped him understand the device. Because we're going to be in the same class, Aijiro threw the classroom door open, startling some of the other kids. Hey everyone, I'm Kirihima Aijiro, and this is my best friend Midoriya Izuku, but I call him Izubro. He grinned his sharp teeth at them. The sun decided to hit them just right at that moment and glimmer of the pearly whites that amplified the gleaming light. One of the kids who had the head of a fish shielded his face. My eyes. The teacher chose that moment to intervene, every child taking a seat and listening to the instructor as well as children could. Izuku would take every spare second he could and examine his classmates. Some of them had obvious mutations: the fish boy, the guy with phone cords in his arms, and a girl with no eyes but decided to glue googly eyes on where her eyes would be. It was going to be so much fun examining their quirks. He didn't want to examine their quirks so closely. The day turned bad super fast when recess hit. Aijiro had attracted a lot of attention from his outgoing personality to his diamond sparkling skin. So far things looked good until they introduced themselves and their quirks. Even with the reassurance from his friend that no one would treat him bad for being quirkless, Izuku was hesitant to reveal his status. Most were okay, but seemed to tolerate him being around or treated him like glass. A handful tried to pull Aijiro away to play with them instead. Aijiro insisted that Izuku be involved in everything he did, his own way of making sure his school life would be different. One of the smarter kids suggested hide and seek and invited the two to play. Both were excited at first for both of them being asked to play, but once Aijiro was hidden, the game changed to seek and destroy. Izuku now was running to avoid 3 kids, one who could turn into a ball, one that could emit purple lines that he controlled, and the last one, fate was cruel today, had a quirk that could make anything a time bomb. Izuku kept running and running, making sure to leap when the ball boy rolled to him to try and trip him, dodge when a line was sent his way, and outrun the last guy. He wasn't familiar with his school yet, so he didn't know all the little spots to duck and hide in or the secret paths to escape. This was unfamiliar territory, and he was in a lion's den. "Get over here, we need to tag you out," the line boy said, throwing another one. Izuku ducked under it. "I thought this was hide and seek." Ball boy bounced against a tree and launched to try and trip Izuku again. "That's not how we play it here." "Then I don't want to play anymore." Izuku hopped to avoid getting his legs taken out. "You don't get to quit mid-game," Bomber Kid said, grabbing a rock, making it glow, and tossing it forward. Izuku saw the rock flying above him, about to land in front of him. He pushed a little more strength into his legs to outpace the object. With his legs stinging, his sweat starting to build up on his forehead, the rock came down and landed behind him. A second after it hit the ground, it detonated in a small blast. It became incredibly smoky, causing the boys to lose Izuku. "Dang it, how are we going to win?" Ball Boy asked. "Don't give up, that's how a hero wins," Line Kid said, running through the smoke, accidentally inhaling smoke and coughing away. The 3 kept their momentum, determined to find the quirkless kid. Izuku himself turned around a corner next to the school and halted before he hit a wall. His heart dropped. He ran right into a dead end. Maybe if he was fast enough, he could. Come on, he can't keep running. Oh, you have no idea long how he can run. But he can't go back the way he came, and there's no windows he could reach. How was he supposed to get out of this? He shouldn't have left Aijiro. He should have stayed by him. He needed to get to him before the others found him. Responding to his thoughts, the Omnitrix beeped with a small flash on the screen. Teleport function activated. He lifted his arm up to see what the Omnitrix was doing. It had a map displayed with a series of numbers on it. Before he could think about having discovered a new feature, the Omnitrix started to generate a sphere of green light around it, expanding until it enveloped him entirely. Everything was bright, and he couldn't hear anything besides the high-pitched noise coming from the watch. It died down before it got too bad, and Izuku found himself in a tree with Aijiro on a branch under him. "Izubro, how did you do that? Did you give yourself a teleporting quirk?" Izuku looked back to the watch, willing it to display what function he just used. A holographic screen showed the history of functions he had used, and sure enough, listed just a second ago, was a teleport from one side of the school grounds to the other. How was he supposed to explain this? After tons of questions from Aijiro about what happened after school, Izuku caved in and spilled on the 3 that chased him. Aijiro wanted to go back and bop him a good one, but Izuku convinced him that it wasn't worth the trouble now, that he could simply teleport away. "Yeah, how did you do that? Was it the quirk watch?" Or, "Yeah, it was the watch." Izuku avoided Aijiro's eyes. He hated to keep his friend in the dark about this. The Omnitrix was a super secret thing that the man gave to him. He asked him to keep it safe. But couldn't he tell his best friend he was directly affected by it? So it was the least he could do. Aijiro, there's a secret I want to tell you. The red-headed boy noticed how serious Izuku got, and did his best to be respectful and not yell like he always did. Yeah, Izubro. Well, about the watch, it's not from someone's quirk. But didn't the doctors say it was attached to you? What else could do that? Izuku put his hand over the Omnitrix, fiddling with the dial. It was a habit he developed when he felt either cornered, anxious, or just weak. It was given to me by a stranger. He said it was super important and to keep it safe. Aijiro nodded, showing he was listening. Did he tell you what it was? Yeah, he said it was. Help, a weak voice cried out. Before Izuku knew what he was doing, he was already running to the source. It sounded like a girl their age. What if she was hurt? Should he use another part of the Omnitrix to help? Why were his legs running? Wait up, Izuku! Aijiro charged right behind the boy, easily catching up. Both their little legs carried them next to an old building. There was a smaller, skinnier, and dirtier girl laying on her side. Both of them stopped right next to her, worried about what happened. Is she? Aijiro swallowed the spit in his mouth. Is she dead? Izuku didn't know, but she was staying incredibly still. The only reason he didn't believe she was dead was how her legs shivered a tiny bit. It must be cold for her. Her hair was messy and full of dirt, but he could make out the silver blonde underneath it. Izuku looked at Aijiro, making eye contact with his friend. With a brief nod, both gained the courage to reach out to her to check on her well-being. Chink! TSK. The girl had moved unbelievably fast and was in front of Aijiro. She didn't look very happy. Izuku was wondering where that noise came from, but then he saw what was in her hand. She had tried to slice his friend with a box cutter. Run! Izuku tried to warn his friend, but the girl changed her target from Aijiro to him. She lunged at Izuku, tackling him onto the ground harshly. She pushed his face against the rocky cement and brought up her broken box cutter. Aijiro grabbed her hand, HS fist becoming enveloped in red crystals. Get off him, Aijiro. Mustering the strength of a superpowered child, picked up the girl and slammed her into a wall. The air ejected out of her lungs, followed by a little bit of stomach acid. While Izuku was still stunned from the display, the girl started to get up. Oh no, you don't! Aijiro grabbed each of the girl's arms and pinned her against the wall. His hands became more and more enveloped in the crimson diamond until they started to crawl along the girl's wrists, digging into the wall behind her. She kept kicking the boy, thrashing against the inescapable grip. She even tried to bite him, but regretted it when her teeth felt the diamond-hard skin. Let me go, she cried, still kicking away. Will you try and hurt us? Aijiro hardened his eyes at her. He had failed to keep Izuku under his watch today, and he barely made sure he wasn't stabbed. No way was he letting this girl go until she promised. Fine, I'll get my meal somewhere else. Let me go. She continued to try kicking Aijiro's crotch, but he didn't react at all. Aijiro gave Izuku a questioning glance, who nodded in response. Aijiro let his hands go and stepped back, ready to jump between her and... Let me go. I already promised. Now, let me go, she continued to cry out, becoming more and more desperate the longer she was stuck. Izuku and Aijiro looked between the crystal boy's red hands and the crystallized restraints on the girl that kept her against the wall. Whoa, I didn't know I could do that. What else could I do? He asked aloud, Izuku's mind recalling all the different things he knew the alien DNA could do. He thought that the small amount of DNA wouldn't do much more than give Aijiro new durability. But the slightly enhanced strength, the rapid generation of Titanite, the self-shifting, it was all the abilities. Maybe since they were still growing, his powers would grow with him. Would he be as strong, or are his powers dimmed down? Because he's still part human, he's still needed to act like any other human, but... Izuku, you're doing it again. Oh, right, stabby girl pinned down. Why did you attack us? Izuku was genuinely curious. It wasn't every day someone referred to them as a meal. Either old ladies did that, or hunters, and this was no old lady. I just needed something to eat, but my parents wouldn't get me food. Now let me go, I'm starving, she struggled again, but was getting nowhere. Aijiro just looked pissed. Seriously, your parents wouldn't get you food? She shook her head, now glaring at the two boys who trapped her. They kept trying to feed me icky stuff that makes me sick after a while. Aijiro looked appalled. What kind of icky stuff? Bread, broccoli, lots of stuff they eat, they try and force me to eat too. That wasn't the answer Aijiro expected. Isn't that just normal food? She rolled her eyes. Normal for them, but makes me sick. Izuku stepped forward. A puzzle was right in front of him, and he just needed a couple extra pieces to confirm it. Are we food? Those yellow cat-like eyes confirmed it to him. She gave him a grin with her fangs exposed. Yep, the tastiest. That solved it for Izuku. She was just like a predator on those Africa shows his mother had on occasionally. Her quirk must rely on blood, making her need it to either stay sane or stay alive. I think I can help. She lost her grin, looking at him suspiciously as he fiddled with his watch. How? Your quirk? It needs blood, right? Without it, you feel icky. Izuku set the Omnitrix to the repair genetic damage function, rotating the dial to have it on human. Yeah, but no one likes it when I ask for it. Even my doctor kept giving me nasty pills that made me feel woozy and icky. When I asked my friends, they all left me. She lowered her eyes to stare at her shoes. No one wants to be friends with me. I'll be friends with you, Aijiro immediately said, making her look up questioningly. Really? Yeah, you didn't pick your quirk, he said, smiling. As the girl tried to figure out what might be hidden behind the earnest boy, Izuku stepped up to her. I'm Izuku Midoriya. What's your name? Himiko Toga. Toga, if you want, I can make it so you don't have to drink blood anymore, but you wouldn't have a quirk. Aijiro grabbed Izuku's shoulder. Well, wait, they said not to do that again. If people can't give her blood, she's going to get hungry and hurt more people. He then turned back to her, ignoring his friend. Izuku took in a deep breath and locked eyes with her. It's your choice. Being quirkless isn't fun, but if you show me you won't hurt anyone, I can give you a new one. Toga stared down the boy, trying to see if he was lying. He didn't look away, he didn't flinch, but she didn't believe anyone could do what he said. Maybe she'd play his game for fun. Can I have a quirk that makes me turn into anyone without needing blood? A couple aliens came to mind for Izuku, but one seemed perfect for it. So he nodded. Himiko smiled teasingly. Sure, go ahead, I want to see what you do. Okay, but you need to keep it secret, otherwise we'd both be in trouble. Fine. Aijiro looked between Izuku and Toga. Mizubro, I don't think she's. All right, here I go. Izuku placed his hand with the Omnitrix over her head. Stabilizing genetic code. Scree. The familiar light covered her for a few seconds before it vanished. Himiko blinked her eyes and looked at Izuku. He used his toy to make a flashy light. Of course it wasn't real. But then she blinked again. Her eyes, they felt weird. Maybe the light hurt them. She wanted to talk, but then her tongue felt her teeth. Her fangs were gone. She didn't believe he could actually do it. No. Wait, I thought you were joking. I don't want to lose my fangs. I don't want to lose my eyes. I want my quirk back. She started to cry, making Izuku immediately regret his actions. He should have been more clear that she understood, but he really wanted to help her. What's going on here, man? Called out from the sidewalk. Izuku and Aijiro realized how bad it looked. Her trapped in Aijiro's crystals. The two of them probably looked like they were picking on her. The dirt and holes in her clothes didn't help either. But when he got closer, they recognized each other. Midoriya. Mr. Detective. I'm starting to think this kid is looking for trouble. Detective Tsukachi leaned back in his car seat, looking over a report to submit in his hand. It was deeply concerning when he first came across the scene, but seeing Midoriya involved, he knew he had to look into it. At first, their perspective seemed just fine. It was clear self-defense against a girl who had an uncommon quirk that seemed to need blood. When he questioned the boys, they were hesitant to talk to him. At first, he thought it was because Kirishima used his quirk, but he could easily sweep that under the rug. The girl, though, didn't talk when he started asking questions. It took a lot more effort to eventually get a name. The girl looked like she hadn't seen a shower in weeks, but her parents never reported her missing. There was clear neglect, possible abuse, and a hell of a lot more paperwork to make sure the girl was somewhere safe during all this. Looking at the Quirk registry confirmed that she had an appetite that only blood could satisfy, otherwise she would be feral. The odd part was the photos and extra description. She didn't have the fangs or the feline eyes, and when he was able to ask her about it, she just curled up into a ball. What happened to this girl? Knock, knock. One of his officers was tapping at his window. Unrolling it, he handed the detective tablet. The hospital, the ambulance, took her to let us know she's in perfect health. I gotta say, you work fast on those Quirkless cases. Just because Midoriya ran into her doesn't mean it's a Quirkless case. The officer paused, giving him a puzzled look. You didn't know? Know what? He just chuckled and walked away. Detective Tsukachi knew he was missing something big right then, but not immediately concerned according to the officer. He looked over the tablet, seeing what the hospital logged for her. No diseases, minor scrapes and bruises, nothing a good bath couldn't solve. What was the guy talking Abu? Quirk factor none. He held up the other document, the Quirk registry. Both were Himiko Toga. Both had the blonde hair and same parents. But one of the files said she was Quirkless, and unfortunately for him, it was the most recent one. It was the worst case running through his mind. During the time this girl had ran away, something happened that caused her to lose her quirk. Thank goodness for Midoriya's luck finding her. The girl would need a friend that shared her status. He should keep them out of this, though, not letting them know she lost her quirk for good. He'd try getting as far as he could on this, and if there was in any way a hint that Menace was alive, then he would call in the big guns. Izuku Midoriya, Inko said sternly, shaking the boy to his bones. As soon as Inko got a call that Detective Tsukachi had found her boy involved with a new case, she raced over. Aijiro and Izuku were sitting next to each other as the detective and a female officer were talking with the girl involved. Izuku kept apologizing, saying he used the watch thinking it would help the girl. She wanted to be kind, to tell him he did the right thing, but she didn't know the whole story and needed Izuku to know this was serious. Why did you think it would help her? She asked, keeping a low and quiet tone so others couldn't eavesdrop. Aijiro raised his hand, but Inko put it down for the boy. It was between her and her son. Sniff Izuku tried not to cry, but he was failing as he tried to explain to his mother what happened. She Sniff needed blood Sniff and was hurting people to get it. Sniff I thought that if she didn't have her quirk then Sniff, then she wouldn't have to hurt anyone else. As Inko's son started to hiccup, she tried to understand what he had told her. If she needed blood, why couldn't she just get it at a blood bank? Or have people donate like her parents Izuku hardly would have needed to do what he did if that was the case. You're free to take your son and his friend home, but would it be alright if I talked to you just for a second? Detective Tsukachi asked. Inko hardly noticed his approach, but she grew nervous at what he might have discovered. Nodding hesitantly, she followed the man into his office. How many times had she been here already? I have a large favor to ask, and it involves the girl. A favor. She nodded, waving him to go on. He pulled his chair from out of his desk and plopped into it, relieving his arm of the new heavy stack of papers in it. In no way are we going to punish those kids. They acted in self-defense and caught her before she might have hurt more people. In her quirk registry, it states that she needs blood for it to work, and if given too long a period, she might go feral. Simply put, her parents didn't give her that, and neither did the local doctor despite it being listed as a medical need. Both are being looked into, but the biggest thing is she ran away weeks ago. Inko gasped. She would have been hysterical if Izuku was gone a day without letting her know. But he said that her parents didn't give her something she needed. Something was strange about this. Have they been told she's found? We're thinking about it. Why haven't you told them? Yet they must be worried sick. We had an officer stop by saying there was a lost girl that matched their daughter's description. You know what they said? He pulled up his notepad. Inko was starting to go pale in shock about what the parents said. They said they didn't know anyone by that description. They also said they didn't have a daughter. Inko wasn't one to swear in front of her son, but he wasn't here right now. Those bastards, do they not care what happens to her? Do they treat everyone who needs help like shit? If I found out that my son was treated like that, I would fuck their lives over with. Before I'm legally required to record what you're saying, please hear me out. He leaned forward, rubbing his eyebrows at thinking about what he was asking. Her quirk, you could say. He tried to find a way of wording it to cover it. Crashed. Yeah, because He kept trying to string up a valid excuse, but the longer Inko stared at him showed she wasn't buying it. For a guy who specialized in detecting lies, he really sucked at telling them. Inko raised an eyebrow at him, waiting impatiently for a real answer. Okay, long story short, she can't use her quirk anymore. Since you have experience raising a quirkless child, I was wondering if you'd look after her until we get the ruling on her parents. He caved in, not completely, but enough that satisfied Inko. So that's the favor she asked, easing up her intensity. Tsukachi nodded, unintentionally holding his breath waiting for her answer. Inko said nothing and looked out the window to where the kids were seated. Himiko Toga. Inko knew the truth, and luckily the detective didn't connect Izuku to the quirklessness. She could see the Kirishima's boy, doing his best to try and lighten the mood by talking to the two of them. Izuku just kept glancing to Toga, guilt written all over his face. It broke her heart to see him like that. He only ever wanted to help people, and he tried doing that. But Toga, oh Toga, she looked the worst. It looked like she just had her entire life ripped from her. The only time she had ever seen that look on someone was her own son the day they found out he was quirkless. Inko made her choice. I'll take care of her. How long until she can get a family? Getting a warrant for the parents and the doctor, dealing with lawyers, launching an investigation into possible events that happened years ago, there's a lot that needs to go down. We're looking at somewhere between a couple of years at most. He got up and looked to where he saw Inko smiling. Izuku and Aijiro got Toga to start coloring with them. Each one was taking turns drawing a hero that could beat the other kids. Izuku was drawing strange mutation quirked ones that didn't look human at all, while Aijiro was drawing themselves with different costumes and powers. Toga, finally fed up with the weird creative ones, decided she would draw a massive hero with spikes and lasers coming from him on the wall. Or today, Detective Tsukachi chuckled with Inko as one of the officers started chasing the kids through the hall. Himiko Toga, the girl that was obsessed with blood, the girl who loved to make people bleed, the girl who tended to be called a stalker by parents and teachers. Where did she go? Himiko Midoriya was in front of the mirror in her pajamas, looking into her golden eyes, reflecting back. They still looked weird to her with round pupils, and she couldn't see in the dark as well anymore. That was just one of the many things that died that day. Was she really the same person? Grabbing a toothbrush, she tried to ignore the constant questions that entered her head every time she saw a picture, a reflection, anything that reminded her that things were so different back then. The bristles against her now fangless teeth felt nice, actually managing to use them without her accidentally cutting them. It was so annoying to dig them out from her gums like a piece of popcorn. Once again, it was a reminder of what changed and the price of it. Before she was alone, fending for herself to survive. Her family, teachers, everyone wanted to stay away from her, and it was exhilarating to feel like she was on the hunt. Her favorite was blending in, taking on a new face and becoming a new person to hide amongst her prey, waiting for a chance to strike. All this time, she just thought it was who she was, and nothing was going to happen to change that. But then she lost her quirk. She underestimated 2 kids her age, and the roles of the hunter were switched on her. Instead of being eaten, sold, beat into submission, or trained, they removed her quirk. Now she doesn't really know who Himiko Midoriya is. It was easy to remember who she once was, but so many natural instincts and desires died when her quirk was taken. With her confusion, she had a new family that treated her well, loved her as their own despite knowing what she had done. Her past parents were locked up, and almost everything went to her. Himiko, would you help me with breakfast, Inko? Or should she call her mom? She was much nicer than her last one. Sure thing, she called back. Even the way she talked was altered. But that could just be the toothpaste in her mouth. Himiko washed out her mouth and placed her toothbrush away. Walking into the kitchen, she could see Izuku sitting at the table coloring a new picture in his notebook. She thought it was heroes, but the ones in his book all were heavy mutant types and looked funny. Probably a video game or something. She should ask if she can try it out. Would you like to try cutting the chicken? Inko asked, offering her a small knife. It was right there. It would be so easy to grab it and push it a little farther to enter her arm to get the rivers of rich red to run out of the limb. Himiko shivered thinking about it more. Even if she could do it, there was nothing it would do to satisfy her anymore, and she would probably lose her chance to get a quirk from Izuku. Sure, she grabbed the knife, feeling the handle in the palm of her hand. Strange, it felt good still. Guess there were some things that didn't change. There was a chicken breast sitting on the cutting board, a piece of meat that hardly had any blood left to bleed. If holding a knife still felt nice, what if? Chalk. Inko turned to the sound. Himiko had just stabbed the chicken with the force that she could muster at 11 years old. The mother smiled and just patted Himiko's head. Let me show you how to cut it up, okay? Himiko looked up at the woman, confused. Okay. Her new mom was weird, really weird. Even Himiko thought that giving a child a knife that had a history of violence that then proceeded to stab something dead would have resulted in some fear. Now she was showing her how to cut meat in a better way to preserve a knife and let the chicken retain its texture for cooking. This taught her a few things, but one thing stood out to her. She still really liked to stab things. She should cook with mom more to get in even more stabbing. Sleepover Ijiro jumped into the Midoriya household, gripping the straps of his stuffed backpack. Sleepover Izuku cheered with less volume, but equal energy. The two boys ran around the couch as Inko talked briefly with the redhead's mother. Himiko was trying to watch TV, getting annoyed by their noise. But after the third time Ijiro came around, she jumped on his back to get him to stop. He just kept running, barely hindered by the girl. Izuku get him to stop. Himiko tried putting her thumbs in his ears. I'll stop when you take your fingers out of my ears, Ijiro laughed as she tried harder to get him to feel something hinting to discomfort. You stop first. I can't hear you. Himiko took her fingers out and was about to repeat herself, but Ijiro stopped abruptly, sending her rolling off his shoulders and hitting the couch hard. Oof. Himiko, are you okay? Izuku ran to his adopted sister's side. Instead of crying or whining, she started to laugh. Ijiro grinned and grabbed both Izuku and Himiko in his arms and ran with them. Let's go to your room, Izubro. Only if I get to play on the computer. Himiko's voice wobbled with each step that Ijiro took. Once the kids were away, Inko and Kirishima's mother finally stopped watching the odd sight. You think they'll learn a little restraint? We'd be lucky if it didn't get worse than this. Izuku was sketching another drawing in his notebook as Ijiro drew another hero costume for himself. Both were sprawled out on Izuku's new larger bed in his room. When they had moved to their new house, Inko had decided to spoil her son a little bit to make up for all the horrible things he went through unnoticed by her. Himiko was sitting on the computer and clicking away at the keyboard, the only noise that filled the air besides the two boys scribbling. Ijiro broke the silence. Hey Izuku, do you think I might have more powers? Izuku looked up from his notebook. What do you mean? Ijiro sat up, setting his paper on his lap. I mean, I didn't know I could grow those crystals a while ago. Now I can make awesome tree forts if I wanted. He coated his fists in red crystal. Izuku flipped a couple of pages in his notebook and landed on one with a man made of green diamonds similar to Ijiro's. After reading a couple lines, he then spoke up to his friend. I mean, it's possible you might be able to reflect certain types of energy or control the crystals without touching them directly, but I don't know how much I gave it could develop the same ability as being in a eluded form, but it's specifically like the same power source, having one is no trick of being mixed with them on. Whoa, wait, did you make that guy after my quirk? Ijiro pointed to the picture. Izuku started to fold the notebook, but someone else snatched it away. Himiko stood by the bed, reading the notebook, then looked to Ijiro, then back at it. She held it at arm's length and turned it around to get a better look at the drawing within. Himiko, give it back. Izuku whined, but the girl tossed it to Ijiro. Speaking of quirks, what would you give me? Both boys went silent, remembering the fact that Izuku had offered her back her quirk a while ago. It had been plenty of time, but she never brought it up. Aijiro turned to Izuku. Wait, could you have given me an entirely different quirk? Himiko knocked on the Diamond Boy's head. You mean this bad hairdo could have been avoided? Hey, my new hair rocks. Yeah, only cause it's a literal rock. Izuku took a deep breath. This whole time he kept the Omnitrix secret, well, the truth behind its secret. Now they came to him after so long of respecting his privacy. If anyone was going to know, it would be the two he was literally using the device's powers on. Yeah, I could have given you different powers. He gripped the watch with his other hand, feeling vulnerable as he opened up. Aijiro and Himiko stopped their playful banter and looked to him. Izuku gently picked up the notebook and flipped through the pages on it to them. Several different drawings, monsters, and plenty of words on it were written. I can give anyone powers similar to these guys, but I would have to erase their quirk to do it. Aijiro scooted a little closer. Wait, you mean anyone would lose their quirk if you used your watch on them? Only if I change them. I can teleport with people just fine. You can teleport, Himiko shrieked, but clamped her mouth shut. After waiting a few minutes for the mother figure to potentially barge in and want answers, she spoke again. Why did you keep it a secret? Didn't you want to be a hero? Izuku shook his head. Yeah, but now I just want to help people. I'll always like heroes, but I need to make sure no one tries to take the watch. Aijiro looked at said object. True. Imagine if a villain went around taking people's quirks. But isn't your watch, put there for someone's quirk? Izuku lifted his arm to show the Omnitrix better. No, he gave it to me without a quirk. This was made by a really smart guy. Himiko touched the faceplate on it, feeling the metal. So why did he give it to a kid? Izuku wanted answers too about the creator, but he had never seen that man again. I got it from the creator's friend, or someone who knew him. He told me to keep it safe, so that's what I'm doing. Getting up from the bed, he went to his bookshelf. I'm not sure about everything it can do, but I know that they did their best to make sure no one bad could get it. Grabbing a stack of notebooks with the same symbol of the Omnitrix on it, he brought it to the bed. This has a bunch of powers listed in it. If either of you want something, just tell me, but it has to be from a single guy. Himiko was first to grab one of them, already examining several of them from back to back. Aijiro had one as well, but didn't seem as invested as the girl. Are you okay, Aijiro? I'm sorry if I upset you by not telling you sooner. He waved Izuku's words off. Don't worry about it, but I don't think changing my powers is a good idea. You gave me some that were already like my quirk, so no one paid much attention. The blonde stopped reading. Does this mean I have to pick a power like my old quirk? Izuku wanted to refute her, tell her she could have any of them, but his friend's words made too much sense. Sorry, but Aijiro's right. People would notice if you got a different kind of quirk. Himiko handed the notebook back to Izuku. Can I think about it? Her brother nodded. Of course, I don't want to do this without your permission. A lot flooded back in her mind. Everything that she's learned about who she really isn't came from losing her quirk. And now she could get a new one before she dared to change her body. She needed to know who she was before taking that step. When she left, Izuku and Aijiro were left alone in the boys' room. How about we play some games? I want to try that All Might Infinite Smash game you were talking about. Aijiro changed the subject. Izuku was so glad to have him as a friend. Himiko sat on her bed, looking page after page of all sorts of creatures that her stepbrother had made. But did he make them? He said that he could give her the powers of any one of the monsters listed. How did he know about all these things if he never even used the watch more than 3 times total to change people? There were so many questions she had about the watch, but Himiko didn't know if Izuku would want to answer them. He already seemed really anxious about telling them it wasn't from a quirk. Izuku was the person in her life to make a change, a good change. Even if it cost Himiko everything she thought she was, life was so much better. She had a family, a nice family that took care of her. Even if she wanted so many answers to so many things, she didn't want to risk losing what she got. So, eventually, when Izuku was ready, she would ask about it, especially how each person in the pages had a homeworld. Forget this, she wants to do something else now. Stabbing is still fun, but she can't stab people without getting in trouble. Maybe there was a game that involves stabbing. Rolling off her bed, she went to find a source of entertainment. Outside her door, she could hear her brother and his friend, who was her friend maybe, playing video games in the living room. That's it, you can't play All Might anymore. Aijiro was mashing buttons, trying to beat Izuku with a bunny-themed hero. But he's my favorite. Know you've memorized every move he can do. Play someone you don't normally select. Okay, I'll use Endeavor next time. Awesome. Himiko slid through the halls to get to Izuku's room. If they were playing out here, then she could play on the computer again. Last time she tried going through and finding if his notes were from a game, and found a couple fantasy ones to play. So, now opening his door too. Such detail for a child. He's certainly gone to further lengths. You understand the aliens than Ben ever has. Himiko stared at the strange man, looking at one of Izuku's books. He had a big doctor coat with goggles around his neck. What was he doing in their house? The man noticed her and gave her a smile. Hello, young one. I was just popping in to see how Izuku was adjusting to life with the Omnitrix. Yet it seems there's hardly a need to be worried. She could stab people who broke into her brother's room, right, Arg? She should carry knives on her more often. Who are you? Where did you come from? He seemed to brighten up at that question and showed her the notebook. I think the proper question is, when did I come from? Don't worry, I'm just an old acquaintance of Izuku's. I see he has found marvelous use for the Omnitrix, helping people without getting into fights. If only more thought that way, it would spare me the trouble. Himiko's eyes widened. You gave Izuku the watch. Bingo, my name is Professor Paradox. I hope Izuku spoke fondly of me. He doesn't like talking about the watch. He hummed, grabbing his chin. Maybe he's taking things more seriously than I expected. It's always good to have friends and family you can confide in. I hope you will be one of them, given your protective nature. I don't know what some of those words mean. He chuckled. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I was about to leave anyway. He pulled out his pocket watch and gave her one last look. Be good to your brother, and be there to listen for anything he trusts you with. Goodbye. He vanished in a flash of white light. Himiko shielded her eyes briefly and soon found herself in an empty room. The only thing that proved she wasn't crazy was one of Izuku's books laying open on his desk, just as the professor left it. Looking over into it, she saw one of his many drawings on it. It was some kind of four-limbed monster made of purple mud. Reading over the powers, it could shape-shift to look like anyone or anything and use its body as weapons. She'll keep this one in mind. And she did for an entire year. It took a long time to finally figure it out, who she was and who she wanted to be. Being around Izuku and Aijiro so much helped her with that. It also helped that they knew who she was. During that time, she never pressed Izuku about the watch or Omnitrix, and Aijiro agreed with her that he would open up when he felt he was ready. Yet he never did. He didn't lie about anything, but he never seemed comfortable talking about it. Middle school was coming up, and to the family's shock, Himiko wanted to be homeschooled. There was a chance that she would change again, and she didn't trust strangers to tell her who she was when she would ask Izuku for a quirk or powers really. One night, when they were watching TV together, Himiko decided what she wanted. Izuku, she asked. Yet he didn't seem to notice her tone, absorbed in the hero movie they rented and stuffing another handful of popcorn in his face. I'm ready. Ready for what? Sweetie, Inko asked beside her. Both seemed oblivious to how serious she was trying to be. I'm ready for a new quirk. Izuku's neck popped by the speed he turned it. Inko looked between the children in a mix of confusion and shock. Izuku, can you do that whenever you want? If Izuku's sweating could speak, it would tell his mother yes, but I never told you. Instead, he nodded his head. Inko paused the movie and knelt next to him. Why didn't you tell me? He couldn't make eye contact with her, because it always made you stressed when we talked about the watch. She sighed and grabbed his hands. You're right. It does make me stressed to think about who would want to try and take my son. You have something that people want, and if they found out you can give and take quirks, they would do much more to take you from us. But you're still my baby, and I want to help you instead of you trying to shoulder everything on yourself. Izuku nodded, showing he was listening. He held up the Omnitrix and turned a dial to show holograms of the creatures she saw him write about. Inko was watching the watch in slight awe, her son demonstrating so much understanding of the mystery device. "Is there one you had in mind?" he asked. Inko just watched as Himiko went to grab a specific notebook she saw so long ago and looked over again and again. When she came back, she had it open to a specific page and pointed to it. "This one. It's close enough to my old quirk that no one will notice." Inko stood up, slightly worried. Will it hurt her? Izuku shook his head. "No, but she may feel different. This one will make her body into a more liquid state, but she should get basic knowledge on how to use her new powers." Twisting the Omnitrix to display the alien, he mentally commanded the setting to change. DNA, splicing active, selection, Lenopan. "It's ready," Izuku said, standing up to face his sister. She took in a deep breath and patted the wrinkles out of her clothes. Himiko didn't really know how to prepare for it, but she still did her best. She nodded, and Izuku took a step towards her and placed his hand on her head. "SKRE." Inko shielded her eyes from the green light. When it died down, she expected to see Himiko look different, but she didn't. She looked just like before. Did it work? Himiko blinked, then looked at her hands. One of them rippled and turned into the purple mud depicted in the drawing. It then swirled and shifted as it became a knife. She smiled at Izuku and Inko. It worked. Green eyes met yellow that seemed to ever so slightly glow. Was it a quirk? Or was it just in the girl in front of him was looking slightly up for them to see each other? She had long blonde hair stretching down to her waist and a choker around her neck. Now, while she was short, Izuku was already short, so he bet that he was just an inch under himself. I know you don't know me that well, but I thought you were cute," and she began to talk. Crap, he hadn't been saying anything again. Glancing behind her, he looked to his buddy who vibrated in place. Ijiro gave him a thumbs up and nodded vigorously behind his hiding spot. "Well, if he gave you okay." Sure. I'd be happy to go out with you." He said it. "Ah, well, cool." She stood up straight. Yes, she was just under himself. "I am Tomo Hikari." It was either out of politeness or stupidity did he bow to her and introduce himself. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. Pleasure to meet you, or date you." Both stood in place, not really sure what else to do or say. What did people do after this? His phone vibrated. He didn't want to be rude to Hikari and check it, but Ijiro was waving over to him and pointing at his own phone. Quickly checking it, his buddy sent him a text. "Crimson Riot asked her to go do something like a restaurant if you've got the money. Ijiro, you are the best. So, are you hungry, Hikari?" She pulled out her own phone to check it, and then smiled a little. Maybe she had someone hiding nearby too. Yeah, that sounds cool. But I don't have any money, so I'll pay. He might have been more loud than he expected, but Hikari smiled at him as if it didn't bother her. "Great, I know an awesome place." Izuku tried his best not to freak out. He really did. "So what can I get you to?" the server asked the two. But how did he end up here in a restaurant, going on a date with a girl? He was just some quirkless loser to the world. Only a handful of people in his life actually acknowledged his existence. Looking up, right across from him was the girl, his girlfriend. How would he tell his mom about this? Himiko was going to tease the life out of him either way. When was it appropriate to bring a girl home to meet the family? "I'll have a number 8 with the cherry boba tea, please," Hikari said, then motioned for Izuku to order. "Yeah, all right, I'll just have a number 9, please." After getting their orders, the server went away, leaving him alone with her. She started to do something on her phone. It worried him that he was already being boring, but maybe she just had a habit of playing on her phone either way. He knew nothing about her, and if she was his girlfriend now, he needed to learn something. "So, what do you like to do in your spare time?" She just shrugged. "Nothing special. I either hang out with my friends or watch some older monster movies." "Oh, that's cool." Gosh, he was feeling awkward. What could he say to keep the conversation going? Taking a peek at her eyes again, they still seemed to carry that glow to them. "Your eyes, do they glow because of your quirk?" "Oh yeah, my quirk is spotlight. I absorb sunlight and can emit it through my body. But the most I can do is cause a sunburn." While you could do a lot with a quirk like that, his shyness vanished, replaced with his fanboyism over quirks. Do you need a constant supply of sunlight, or can you store it for long periods of time Is there a limit ordo s thienergy storeless and overtime when not being as twith it kind of power nevere need to carry a flashlight tan could help with her scented arca wonder if. Here's your food. The meals being placed in front of them reminded Izuku that he had a habit to ramble. So many speech habits he needed to break, it probably freaked her out. But she just sat there as if she wasn't even bothered. He went to grab a fork, but a hand on his turned him bright red. She gave him a sweet smile. Hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to keep our relationship private. No need for others to know, right? He could only nod as she pulled away. Hand-holding was definitely a jump in their relationship, even if it was brief. And so, Izuku Midoriya now had a girlfriend, a secret girlfriend, but Aijiro already knew about that so he could talk to him about it. Heaven knows he needed the help. Himiko noticed something was odd about her brother. He was happier than normal. Sure, it was welcomed, but he didn't talk about it. That part was weird. He always wanted to share what made him happy with his family. At first, she thought he got a special edition figure, but his room didn't have anything new in it. She double-checked where he kept his allowance. No, it wasn't weird. She was his sister and should always have access to everything her brother has, and found that he was burning through it. Her first thought was that he was getting bullied again, but Aijiro was with him to prevent that. So where was his money going? None of the games on his computer showed anything that she didn't buy. Finally, she decided to check his phone. It had that facial recognition thingy, but she easily bypassed it by mimicking her brother's face. Let's see, recent locations. Wow, he's been eating out a bunch. Almost every day, she thought he was supposed to be working out during all that time. Checking his photos. Nothing new besides some pics with Aijiro every now and then. Most of it was heroes that he managed to spot in the city or cool images of them he downloaded. Nothing showing where his money was going yet. She should check his history. How to talk to girlfriend. My girlfriend doesn't talk much, is that good? Good date ideas for food. How to tutor girlfriend for classes. Is holding hands too big of a step? What to expect dating a girl for a month? How long should I wait until meeting girlfriend's family? He had a girlfriend, or he thought he had one. Now, she wasn't someone that was obsessed with romance, but she learned a thing or two from when she would keep tabs on boys she wanted to stab. This didn't seem right. Several red flags were popping up. Wasn't Aijiro supposed to keep tabs on potential bullies? One last place to check, messages. She didn't even have to scroll. There was only a few people he talked to. Aijiro was up top, the person Izuku talked to the most. Himiko and Inko were there at the bottom, but one stood out to her. Tomo Hikari. This was the only potential for Izuku's girlfriend. Checking the texts, there was only times and dates and occasional questions. No conversation, not even any kind of flirting. Arg, why were boys so stupid? Himiko stood up in Izuku's room, plopped herself angrily on the desk chair, and decided to vent by virtually stabbing people. Checking her most recently requested form, it was Endeavor. Some people have started to love her interpretation of the number 1 angry hero, and one in particular donated a lot. Glacier Boy 616 donated 5,000 yen. The guy asked for Endeavor to do lots of weird things, but nothing was sexual, so she didn't mind. One time he asked if she could try having him cry. That was an experience. Pulling up some random shooter game. She started her stream wearing the fake flames. She had to constantly move around to look good enough. Glacier Boy 616 has joined. Wow, that was fast. All right, you weaklings. Nobody else picked the Scorcher class otherwise. What did I just say? Noobmaster 69, she started, venting her anger at the random players in a way that made sense with her wearing Endeavor's face. Click hey Himiko. Is my phone and Izuku started to walk in, but Himiko dared not have her brother present. She was still mad about how stupid he was too. Got him online. Sorry the sign wasn't up. Growling, she stretched her arm out, making it dance like flames to push her brother out, flip the sign on the door, and slam it. Crap. Hopefully no one does anything after her brother came into view. Focusing back on the game, her thoughts were divided in 3 parts, making sure she acted like Endeavor, playing a game, and figuring out how she was going to address this problem. Another month had gone by, and Aijiro was psyched for his buddy. He got himself a girlfriend that wasn't some jerk messing with him. Izuku had talked about how she wanted to keep it private, but he already witnessed her confession in person, so he felt happy to be included in the secret. Every time he had Izuku talk about her, he seemed to stutter and blush. Boy, was he in love. They went to restaurants pretty often. He always paid, of course. Manly, she didn't talk too much, so she was the quiet type. Cool, she also didn't talk with Izuku at school to better cement their secret. She was so committed. On top of that, she didn't text him often, and if she did, it was times and places to meet up for food. It was almost as if she was as secretive as a spy neither of them had told their families, and it was impressive to be that secretive. Ijiro didn't think he could have done it. Izuku was also such a good guy to her, helping her with homework by sharing his notes, helping write her English assignments. How did he get so good at English all of a sudden? Then there was the fact that they were so pure in their relationship. They weren't even holding hands yet. His phone vibrated. Looking at it, Himiko sent him a text. Odd. She almost never reaches out unless she wants something. Her image was of an old-school Pokemon. Ditto. Ditto, hey, I know about Izuku's relationship. He nearly choked. How did she figure that out? Ditto, have you noticed anything odd about it? Crimson Riot, not really. They just want to keep it private. Why are you asking? Ditto, because someone is super dense, as always. Crimson Riot, what's that supposed to mean? Ditto, I want you to use your brain. What do Izuku and this chick do together? Crimson Riot, well, I know he takes her out a lot to eat and helps her with her homework. Ditto, uh-huh. And does she ever want to do anything else with him? Crimson Riot, not that I know of. Crimson Riot, if you've got something to say, say it. Ditto, a good teacher doesn't give away answers. Ditto, has Izuku told you what she likes to do? Crimson Riot, hang out with friends. I think he mentioned how she likes movies, but that's all he knows. Ditto, so she likes watching movies, hanging out with friends, and Izuku has never gone on any kind of date involving things she likes. Crimson Riot, wait. Ijiro was about to type out a response, defending his bro's relationship, but hold on. She only wanted to eat and do her work with him. They didn't do anything else. She didn't want anyone else to know. They weren't even on a first-name basis. Ditto, is it clicking now? Crimson Riot, crap. Crimson Riot, I'm an idiot. Ditto, we already knew that. Mina Ishido, a girl with pink skin and hair with twin yellow horns that stuck out from her head, enjoyed the time she had with her friends. She sat with a few of them in their class during lunch, all of them giggling away, sharing prank ideas. So, has anyone here actually done a prank recently? Two of them gave one another a look and started laughing madly, while the third just looked at her phone. Mina became invested instantly at what tale they might tell. Yeah, one of the girls began. We've been getting this one guy for over 3 months. Mina laughed with them. Well, go on, is he cute? Not really, but he was gullible enough for it to work. Come on, tell me. Mina whined to them. The one with blue hair finally began. Okay, so we wrote this love letter and put it in his locker to see how long he'd wait. Guess how long? Her gut twisted a little. Mina didn't usually like these pranks. It took a good friendship or really knowing the guy to think of doing something like this. I don't know, half an hour. No, 3 hours, and we put another letter in the next day, and he waited again. She tried to keep up her smile, but this was taking a turn she didn't like. Sometimes some of her classmates could interpret a joke as having someone else be humiliated. At least this one wasn't in public. Did you stop after that? Why would he kept going up to the rooftop for a month? Wow, harsh. She would need to talk to them more seriously after this. Maybe find the guy and apologize after this. Her other friend Tomo was oddly quiet. Not that she wasn't normally the quiet one, but she didn't look too happy. So, did he finally stop? Well, when his buddy started looking around for who was making the letters, we decided to either give up or take it a step further. Mina did not like the grin the girl took. She grabbed Tomo's shoulder and pulled her closer. We got Tomo here to go up last second and pretend to like him. She's such a good actress, she even got him to help do our work without him even knowing it. Tomo looked like she wanted to run away. Finally, the blonde said something. Come on, I only did it cause you two wouldn't stop bugging me about it. Oh, quit complaining. You were getting free meals out of him anyways. Because you kept telling me to do it, saying just one more time. Tomo, do you actually like him? Tomo pulled herself out of the girl's grasp. blushing and pouting at her friends. You said it yourself. Who would date a quirkless kid? That was it. That was the straw that broke Mina's back. She had a brother that was quirkless, had being the key word, and no way was she letting this happen again. Forcing a sweet smile on her face, she talked to Tomo. Hey, where does he eat around this time? Put off by the sudden question, Tomo fidgeted under the pink girl's gaze. In the cafeteria, he's the one with the green hair and freckles. Always sits next to the guy with a ruby on his head. Awesome, let's go see him right now. Mina yanked Tomo out of her seat and dragged her to her next destination. She kept a smile on her face, but internally she was trying not to just spray the girl with acid right there. Aijiro kept pausing while he was eating and glancing at Izuku. It bothered the green net. Obviously something was on his friend's mind, and it involved him. Putting down his chopsticks, he finally decided to question him. What's wrong? Wrong? Nothing's wrong, man. Just thinking about stuff. If Aijiro could sweat Izuku a bit, he'd be doing it right now. There is only one topic that his close friend and family didn't talk about him with. Is it about the Omnitrix? His buddy looked up in surprise as Izuku went on. I know I haven't told you guys a lot about it, only what it's done to you guys. If you really want to know more about it, I'd be open to the idea. It took a lot of courage to bring it up. He hadn't even scratched the surface about the fact that it was alien in origin. They had been respectful, not prying too deep when he had started to get uncomfortable. Eventually they should know about it, though. It directly changed them. Aijiro sighed before putting his utensil down. It's not about the watch, it's about your girlfriend. What about her? Aijiro kept opening his mouth, then closing it again. Something bothered his friend about the relationship, and Izuku couldn't guess what. Everything was just fine. Even if he and Hikari hadn't done too much together, they were taking it slow, and he was happy where they were. So what gives? Izuku, I don't know how to tell you this, but... He waited for Aijiro to start, feeling defensive out of nowhere. Aijiro was his closest friend, but he didn't like how he kept dancing around his concerns about his relationship with Hikari. There he is, hey over here, lover boy. Some random pink girl was coming over, dragging a familiar person with her. Wait, no, Hikari wanted to keep it private, but the pink girl ignored Izuku's panic face and pulled his girlfriend right up to them. Hikari herself seemed to be as equally panicked as Izuku, if not more. When I heard you were dating him, I had no idea. Good for you two, Mina congratulated loudly, slapping Hikari's back. Izuku didn't like how she was being treated and was about to get up, but suddenly Aijiro jumped in with energy. Oh yeah, Izuku and Hikari are an awesome couple. They go out almost every day, isn't that right? Both the nervous teens looked around the cafeteria, murmurs and whispers building up fast, all pointing at them. Wait, the quirkless kid got a girlfriend. He might have lied to her. Maybe she's blind or something. Mina went in for the kill and pulled Hikari a little closer to Izuku. Come on, I thought you'd be happy spending time with your boyfriend. We're not dating, Tomo shouted, silencing the cafeteria. She was glancing around like a cornered animal, trying to keep an eye on everyone who was looking at her. All except Izuku, who she refused to look at. Noticing some doubting looks, she continued to try and save herself. I mean, he's quirkless. Who would want to be with someone so useless? After the words left her mouth, her face twisted in horror. Izuku just blankly looked at her as she slowly turned to look at him. He wanted to beg her it wasn't true, that she was just making it up to keep their secret. But she ran off. She left him. He tried checking his phone to text her and get confirmation. He barely managed to pull up his messages when he started to type. The chat vanished, gone. She had blocked him. The pink-haired stranger sat down next to him and put her hand over his phone. I'm so sorry. She was using you for some lame joke. Tomo didn't like you. Izuku's fingers became numb. He didn't want to be here. He needed to get out from everyone's gaze. Getting up from his seat, he ignored everyone around him. Even Aijiro, who tried to put his hand on Izuku's shoulder. It's true, man. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I wanted to bring it up, but... He pulled himself out of Aijiro's grip and walked off. Anywhere but the school was better. His feet marched straight to a bathroom, kicking open the stall door as he walked in. Holding up the Omnitrix, he pulled up a map of the city. Right now, he needed time to himself, and he didn't want anyone he knew to spot him on the streets. Selecting a destination far enough for himself, he selected the option to teleport. A flash of green was the last thing he left behind. Now he found himself in a random street, empty enough for him to sit down and lean against the wall. How could he have been such an idiot? Of course. She didn't like you like that. Who would? He's just some useless kid with a fancy watch. How? Why did Paradox decide some brat like him should have the Omnitrix? Izuku could only cry, his heart feeling as if it was about to implode. He clutched his hair with a tight grip, banging the back of his head on the brick wall behind him. Why was he not allowed to love people in this world? Maybe it's because they didn't see him offering anything of use, that a quirkless burden is just some burden to be taken care of. He relaxed enough to look at the Omnitrix again. When he was smaller, when he first got it years ago, he was so excited to help people with it. It cured Aijiro and gave him new powers, but he was told that if others found out, he would be locked up. Somehow he barely managed to get away with Himiko's situation, but that was it. Even teleporting was to be kept a secret. Yet how was he supposed to help the world with it if he had to keep it secret? Maybe he wasn't cut out to be any kind of hero. But. He glanced up, his eyes still puffy. Some little girl was running barefoot in the alley, covered in bandages and a ragged white shirt. Her bare feet smacked against the damp cement and charged straight ahead, right to him. Oof, she barreled into him, knocking him onto his side. He started to lean up, putting his arms under her to lift her off him. Her own arms protested and locked around his body. Please, she whimpered into his chest. Help me. Her quiet begging, along with her shaking, made him look at her again. Bandages, messy white hair that clearly hadn't been washed, bloodstains, and dirt covering her little limbs, especially around her feet. Something very wrong was happening, and she was terrified. He sat up, making sure she didn't get knocked over from his movements by holding her. A single horn poked into him, a quirk of some kind. What was he supposed to do? Maybe he could take her to a hospital, or would a police station work better? Where are you, Eri? If you come out right now, I promise I won't punish you. Some man's voice spoke from around the corner of the alley in a threatening tone. The little girl in his arms shook even harder, too scared to even breathe. He wasn't too sure how to get this girl help, but he knew that whoever was around the corner was not a friendly person. Eri, is it your name? Izuku whispered into her ear. She didn't respond, so he kept talking while keeping his eyes to where the voice's echo came from. I'm going to hide you, okay? It might be a little scary, but don't worry. No one will be able to hurt you. He felt her head nod, giving him permission to act. He put his left hand with the watch over her back. Omnitrix, activate internal spatial storage, home setting. Confirmed, activating internal space designation Earth. A brief flash of green light emitted from the Omnitrix. When it cleared, the little girl in his arms was gone. Izuku took a deep breath. Now that she was safe, and with him, he could figure out where he should. Hey kid, did you happen to see a small girl with white hair and horn? Izuku looked up, making eye contact of a man in his 20s glaring down at him. He had a strange coat with fur lining around the neck, gloves, and a massive mask the shape of a beak. And no, sir. Sorry. You're not a very good liar, are you? Crap. Izuku put his legs to use and shot up from the ground to run. A hand grabbed him before he could get far, holding onto his left arm with a deadly grip. The man turned to Izuku to face him. You filthy child, just tell me where the girl is, and I promise to let you go. Izuku struggled in the man's grasp. Despite him doing his exercises with Aijiro, he was still much smaller than whoever this guy was. His gloved hand encompassed the Omnitrix. As he tried to pry himself away, he tried to think about how he could get out of this. Teleport, no, it brought whatever was with him along. He might be able to store him in the watch on a separate planet than Eri, but what then? Just pop him back out. Fine, maybe losing an arm will make you listen. The man went to activate his quirk, clutching the boy's wrist. It was a shame he had to destroy one of his gloves, but he carried spares just in case. The Omnitrix was surrounded by a ball of green lightning, protesting whatever the man just tried to do. Asterisk, boom, asterisk. Izuku was sent onto his rear as the other was sent flying until he hit a wall, knocking him out. He didn't know what the Omnitrix just did, but he was glad there was some type of self-defense mechanism built in. All he focused on now was getting out of there before the man woke up. He sprinted away as he mentally commanded the Omnitrix to teleport him home. There he would figure out what to do next. Shoto sat by the counter at home after just finishing one of his at-home classes. The old man didn't want him to be potentially distracted by those that might drag him down. In other words, Endeavor didn't want Shoto to have friends to hang out with when he could be training. It was stupid, only because it was his father's decision. He never had friends, so he personally didn't know what he was missing, but he found the next best thing to one. Shoto ate a bite of his lunch as he pulled up the only thing he entertained himself with nowadays. Doors stuck, let me out, the image of Hawks spazzing out while his character was jammed between the door and the wall. Based on the lighting and the eerie music, it must be a horror game this time. She seemed like those that got more views too. It took a little bit of video skimming to find out it was even a she disguised as the heroes, but he did it. At first he thought it was a guy, given the room she played in with all the hero merchandise, the few articles of clothing spotted in the corners, but it became clear this was someone else's room. The recurring person showed up every now and then. A boy around his own age with green hair and freckles came into view at least 5 times from the hundreds of hours of video. His voice was only captured 16 times, and he spoke the streamer's name only twice. Himiko. It wasn't a boy's name, but just in case, he re-examined the footage of their interactions. It was similar to the relationship Fuyumi and Natsuo had with each other. Casual, a little playful, and not holding anything back. They were family, and one time he said something in a whisper, barely caught by the mic. Shoto had to download a video editing app, learn how to use it, and isolate the sound to figure out what he said. If you're my sister, then you transform into a guy. Does that turn you into my brother? Sister, she's female by default. He didn't know why that was important for him, but he noticed he felt differently about her when he discovered it. Shoto started to get mad when others asked her to transform into Midnight or gender bend the male heroes and say something to turn them on. Before he could finish typing anything into the chat, they were blocked. But he wondered about her face, her real face. In his dreams, he would imagine sitting in a chair next to her as she played games. No transformations, but she was equally energetic as she spammed buttons on the keyboard. His phone lit up with a green light, grabbing him from his daydreaming. Hawks/Himiko turned right to the source, briefly surprised by it. Izuka, what are you? Himiko, please get off the computer. Whatever she saw made her on edge, and without even saying goodbye to the chat, she signed off. Shoto's food hung in the air, suspended by his chopsticks, as he tried to piece together what had happened and what was happening somewhere in the world. His instincts told him to find her, protect her, and help in any way he could. But he didn't know where she lived or who she truly was. Worst of all, she probably wouldn't know who he was besides a random name on the internet that gave her money. Somehow that thought hurt him, and it was confusing. Eri kept still, hiding under the bed of the random room she found herself in. When she heard his voice, the arms around her disappeared in a warm green glow. Now she felt no warmth, but there was also no cold, no smells, no noise. Everything was still and silent in the mysterious room. She peeked out and glanced up at the smiles of the same big man on the walls, on the little plastic people on shelves, and even on the bed. After what felt like an hour waiting for something, anything to happen, she felt it okay to come out. Her eyes stayed on the door, expecting to open or hear footsteps with the smallest movement she made. Nothing happened. Pulling her body out from her hiding spot, she explored her new surroundings in childlike curiosity. None of the rooms in the tunnels looked like this. The bed looked really nice. She reached and felt the blanket resting on it. Soft, she muttered as she rubbed her hand back and forth across it. Her own blanket was scratchy, barely able to keep her warm. Resting on the foot of the bed was something weird. It reminded her of a pillow, but it was shaped like a little man, the same one on everything in the room. Eri stretched up, going on her tippy toes to try and grab the unusual pillow. Her body pressed into the comfy bed as her tiny hands kept trying to grab it. With a little hop from her feet, she was able to achieve her goal and step away from the bed with her prize. Eri began to touch the bunny ears on his head. He had human ears from what the picture showed, but hair didn't stick up like this. They were obviously bunny ears. Izuku. Himiko tried to get his eyes on her, to focus on something that wasn't his hyperventilating. She changed back into her real form, so she wasn't wearing his Stanger's face. He finally looked up, looking completely distraught. What happened? He barely talked, just muttered broken words under his breath. There was this girl. I was somewhere away from the school, but she never really. At lunch, a pink girl came, and Izuku. She knelt down and grabbed his hands as he sat on his bed. Did it involve Tomo? He didn't answer, just started to tear up again. She didn't really like me. She never loved me. Someone showed up with her at lunch and put us on the spot. Both her and Jiro talked about our relationship, and then, why can't I just be allowed to be happy? Himiko stretched her arms and wrapped them several times around him, giving him the best hug she could as he cried. He never, ever let the bullying get to him like this. But this was different. Some bitch took her time, dragged it out, and got him to open his heart to them. Then like the bitch, she took that heart and stabbed it. You know, stabbing was Himiko's thing, and she was never going to be some wicked person like that. Stabbing her sounded really good right now. She should check with Izuku to know where she lives. The door opened. Shitmom was home and must have heard him. Izuku, what's hap? Some cunt played with Izuku's heart. Himiko summarized to her. Mom ignored her language, but she knew she was going to get talked to later about that. Her focus was rushing to Izuku's side and hugging him. I'm so sorry, baby. Inko stroked Izuku's hair, pulling him into a side hug. Is that why you came home? Izuku lifted his head out of their arms, more scared than sad. No, I wanted some different part of the city first. Inko continued to pet his hair, gently probing but needing to know. Was there a specific place? No, just somewhere random. But then this girl showed up. Himiko's face twisted in a snarl, thinking about the possibility of some other bitch messing with him. Izuku continued before the others could ask. She was hurt and dirty. I think she ran away from a really bad place. Someone was looking for her, and I hid her. I think he tried to kill me. Whoa, hold up. That was beyond what either of them expected to come from a breakup story. Inko took it worse and immediately checked him for injuries. Did he hurt you? Did you call the police? Was there a hero too? Mom, let him explain. Himiko poked Inko's forehead with a small tendril of her muddy self, then retracted it. Izuku took a couple breathes, trying to calm himself down. His quirk, he tried using it on me, but I don't know what it was. He said something about me losing an arm. Well, he must not have been able to do it, seeing as how he had both his arms. He was holding the Omnitrix at the time, and it went off, throwing him with some concussive force. After that, I came straight home. As their mom clutched her son with might, squeezing him and thanking every higher power that he was okay, Himiko pondered something. So, what happened with the girl? Removing one of his arms from the hug, Izuku held up his watch. In here. He could do that that where he hides when they played hide and seek that little cheater. Is she okay in there? Inko asked, and Izuku nodded. I think it's the safest place on Earth. I sent her into a copy of my room. You don't need to eat in it or sleep. Should I bring her out now? Himiko was about to scream yes. What kind of question is that? But Inko said something else. I'm going to talk to the detective and ask him to come over to help. You should take a shower first. You smell a little gross, and she should have a good impression on us if we want to help her. It was odd logic, but it was mom logic, and there was no arguing with it. Izuku nodded before grabbing a pair of clothes and heading to the bathroom. It left Himiko and Inko alone. The blonde expected Inko to get up or start the call, but she remained there. Ah crap, mom wanted to be alone with her. Without Izuku, and without the mysterious girl hidden in the watch. SKRE. Eri spun around, clutching the soft pillow man against her chest for some kind of safety as that same light appeared next to her. The boy came back, wearing something different. He had on a white shirt with a black line on his chest leading up to his neck and wrapped around it. It went down his sleeves and wrapped around his arms. He had on dark green pants with big pockets on the sides and wore red slippers. His hair was wet and he rubbed a towel against it. She stayed frozen, unsure of what he would do now. When Eri first saw him, she just wanted to get away from the bad man, from Overhaul, but was this guy better or worse than the others? He knelt down to be at level with her and put on a small smile. Hi, sorry I didn't come earlier. My family had a lot of questions. Eri stood still as his eyes looked over her, a frown coming on his face. But he did smile when he saw the pillow in her arms. I see you found All Might. Do you like him? Who is All Might? Was it the name of the pillow man? She still felt nervous, but nodded. She liked the soft thing she had in her arms. He smiled a little more before sitting down next to his bed. My name is Izuka Midoriya. It's good to meet you. You're bleeding. He moved to get closer to her, but she backed away at his sudden movements and shivered. Izuka stopped when he saw her reaction and stayed still but remained worried. His eyes stared a little harder at the bloody footprints in the room. She must have cut her feet when running barefoot so long in the streets. Your feet, they're bleeding. We should get you cleaned up. No, she hated when they cleaned her, but she couldn't say no. That meant more pain. As she waited for him to grab her, take her to wherever he chose, he didn't move. Izuku just gently reached out his hand. Please, I promise the water in the tub is warm. T-tub, she asked in a whisper. Izuku nodded, but tilted his head in confusion. Yeah, do you know what a bathtub is? Eri shook her head. Then how about showers? She shook her head again. Izuku scratched his scalp, trying to solve the puzzle in front of him. Then how do you get cleaned up? Ashos. He leaned in a little further to hear her. They clean me with hoses. It hurts. Eri's eyes started to moisten, her clutch on the little man becoming tighter. Will you spray me with the hoses? She didn't notice the shock in Izuku, or the way he frowned further, but he did gently reach out a single finger. Eri watched it intensely, waiting for it to reach out and bite her. If she moved in a way he didn't like, it would turn into a fist, but it didn't. He stroked the back of it against her hand in a slow, steady motion. He was soft, just like the things in the room. There won't be any hoses. It will just be like a big puddle of warm water. Eri rose her hand slowly, grabbing the soft finger. It was warm, gentle, probably the only time she remembered actually liking someone touching her. She nodded slightly, deciding to trust the boy. Izuku smiled again weakly and held up the green thing on his wrist. Omnitrix, bring us out. Both were engulfed by the light, proving to Eri once again that he had a warmth around him. She never wanted to leave him, ever. He looked up from his notepad at the little girl with clean bandages in Izuku's arms holding an All Might plushie and back down to his notes that reviewed over the incident. Detective Tsukachi let out a sigh. Seriously, it's like you have a magnet for these things. Helping out random children, Inko asked, sitting next to Izuku, Himiko on the other side of him. I was thinking danger, but I guess that works too. There were a couple things left out so far that he needed to know. Example, just where exactly it happened, but Izuku couldn't recall only that it was far. It couldn't have been too far, given the time it takes to get from his school to wherever he met the girl, and here. If he ran the entire time, it only left him with a minute of interaction with the girl and the unknown villain. You must have great stamina to run with a kid all the way here. Izuku looked away from the detective. As something like that. He didn't like vague answers, but his sister piped up. He runs with Ijiro every morning. Truth. Izuku must still be bashful under compliments. Well, we'll look into Eri and see who her family is. If there really is a villain involved, we might need to request the local heroes do more patrols around the neighborhood. Maybe request an underground hero to swing around from their normal routes at night. The sketch artist beside him handed him a rough sketch of the villain. He had a useful quirk that let him visualize a single thing someone was thinking of when they were focusing hard enough. On it, he had a clear image of the man with a strange mask. So, this is the guy and not some villain you saw on TV. He handed the image above the little girl's head. That way she didn't see him in case she would go into a panic attack. Izuku held it briefly. Yes. Truth. Izuku handed the detective back the image. Thank you, Midoriya. Did he give any hints about what his quirk does? Izuku nodded. Yes, after I hit Eri, he questioned me if I saw her. When I told him no, he didn't believe it. He mentioned something about talking after losing an arm and then reached out for me. It might be a destructive or dismembering quirk based off touching that's why I reached out hut. Tsukachi got enough truth and held his hand up. It was clear that the boy was out of it, and he had already asked enough from him. He was hoping to ask Eri some questions, but she was way too nervous to talk. Well, I think that is about everything I need. I'll call later and see when we see what turns up once we run those bandages through a couple of tests. He put the clipboard under his shoulder, the few officers inside joining him as he went to exit. Inko got up to escort him out, leaving the kids to themselves at the couch. Thank you so much for helping us. The man waved her off. It's my job. I literally get paid every time something comes up, not that I'm hoping for these things too. I get it, Inko said, opening the door for them. She bowed to each officer that was leaving, only the detective remaining as he put his shoes back on. He glanced back to the kids, seeing Himiko try to get Eri's attention by waving a hand in front of her. That was replaced by a little duplicate of Eri. HM. Did she get her quirk back? He pointed to the anomaly. The woman seemed to freeze, hesitant to answer. Several alarms blared in his head. She had lost her quirk. That was absolutely true. Not even a trace remained. Now here she was, a demonstration of a shape-shifting ability right in front of him. Well, she started to be able to change any part of her on command, about a year after we took her in. Truth, but it was vague, and he hated vague answers, especially when it came to those who knew what his quirk was. The Midoriya family were a good bunch, though, today proving how they go out of their way to take care of someone who needed it. A deep fear rose in his stomach. If that man was involved, Tsukachi wanted him to be as far as possible from this family. He should look into everything around them, just to make sure. Okay, well, thank you again, but are you sure you want to keep Eri here as we investigate? Whatever feeling around her vanished, replaced by that motherly charm. Of course, she has refused to leave Izuku's side this entire time, even in the bathroom. I'm wondering if I should have him homeschooled like Himiko. I'm sure you'll figure it out, but if you don't mind, I'd like to swing by and check up on things every now and then. She smiled fondly. We have special meals on Friday nights. You could join us then. This family was too pure for the world. I'll let you know if I'm available. After their farewells, the Midoriya family was left with the mystery girl who watched Himiko do her impromptu puppet show featuring one hand as Izuku and the other as All Might, with Himiko making her little Izuku act like the fanboy he is in exaggerated ways. You are so cool, All Might. That's why I decided to have every single inch of my room covered in pictures of you that way. I can see your smile and think about how cool you are as I build another shrine to worship you. Himiko said in a perfect copy of Izuku's voice. Himiko, I don't make her think that I treat him as a god. She pouted at him. What else am I supposed to think? You think he's the strongest. Of course. And that he could do no wrong. He's All Might, the best hero ever. No one has seen him do anything remotely bad. Do you also think he can save everyone? He's never not saved someone when he's there. Every single instance he has shown up has had no recorded injuries with his intervention besides the villain. That's what's so great about him. He saves everyone. A small whisper in his arms interrupted their sibling bickery. But you saved me. Inko, Himiko, and Izuku all looked at the little girl as she stared at Izuku's face. You saved me, but you're not the Pillow Man. She held up the plushie in her arms. The mother of the house smiled brightly, rubbing her hand on Izuku's shoulder. Himiko let out a giggle at the little girl's words. You mean the All Might plushie? Izuku asked her. She nodded. He's made out of pillows, but how does he save people if he's made out of pillows? Do you know who All Might is, Eri? He asked, bewildered that someone didn't know the #1 hero. Eri felt embarrassed, feeling she said something weird and retreated further into his arms. Are you All Might then? Oh my gosh, you're turning into an All Might Jr. Himiko laughed, breaking the tension. She was remembering the onesie that he wears in his sleep and referencing what he called himself during their games when they were kids. Izuku grumbled. I'm not. Yurashi countered, sitting up. You saved her. Himiko pointed at Eri. You saved me. She pointed at herself. You even saved Aijiro from cancer. Who? Eri asked from Izuku's arms. Aijiro. He's Izuku. Have you checked your phone? Himiko asked, looking for her own device. No, I haven't looked at it since school, he said, growing a little more reserved, recalling what happened earlier. You should. Himiko held up her own phone, the notifications filled with messages from the redhead. Izuku looked at the time. It was just after the final bell. Instead of reading over the multitude of texts, he would just call him and talk. Aijiro answered the phone immediately. Dude, are you okay? Wait. Stupid question. Of course you're not. But where are you, Ishido? And I have been checking everywhere since you ran off during lunch. I thought I would give you some time, but you didn't come back to class and never answered your phone. We're worried, SI. Izuku had to turn the volume down on his phone to not go deaf. I'm home with Mom and Himiko. I just had to get away. Bro, we totally get it. Ishido said she never heard of a breakup that bad. If you could consider your relationship real. Izuku's stomach began to twist at the mention of his relationship. He didn't want to think about it and took his mind away from it. Who's Ishido? He asked in monotone, suppressing the tidal wave that would have taken over him again. Eri was here. She needed more help than him. His problems were a speck of sand compared to hers. Oh, dude, she's awesome. Some people gave her crap for helping you out, but she wasn't having it. She's actually with me right now listening. Hi, Midoriya, super sorry about what happened, but don't worry. I promise to make sure nothing like that happens again. Aijiro might get in big trouble for hitting a girl, but I won't. You mind if we come and check up on you? Aijiro asked a little more gently. Izuku was about to say no, to let him know not to worry. It was his own minuscule problem that he had to deal with. No need to. Get your butts over here, Himiko said, her head stretched over from her body and behind Izuku. How did he not notice her listening in? She was sitting right in front of him. Copy that. We'll be over soon. He hung up before Izuku could protest. Now Izuku was left with his family and a little girl. This day was exhausting. So, Izuku was sitting at the kitchen table, a small white-haired girl nibbling on a piece of ham as Aijiro looked bewildered at the scene. Inko had brought out a tray of snacks for the newcomers and for Eri to explore all the wonderful things she missed out on. Mina was sitting beside the redhead, cooing over the adorable little girl and sliding a piece of cheese over to her from her plate. Eri took a glance at the snack, then up to Izuku for a sign of permission. He smiled at her, giving a small nod, and put the cheese closer to her. The little hand went out to inspect the unknown. Hesitantly, she brought it to her mouth, took a bite, and began to hum to herself. It's good, she commented in a whisper, then resumed eating her ham alongside the cheese. Bro, Aijiro chuckled. I can't believe how much crap you get into. Sorry I wasn't there to help. Izuku just waved it off, choosing his words carefully as to not to have Eri think about earlier today. Don't worry, besides, I think it's best you weren't there. No offense, but I don't think playing defense would have worked. AWW, she's such a cutie, Mina squealed, splaying her body over the table to get a better look at the girl. Eri flinched at the sudden move, but a calming pat on her head from Izuku reassured her that the pink girl wouldn't harm her. The little girl's eyes took in the strange teen, the skin, the eyes, the horns. Everything was strange about her. Why are you pink? The sudden question had everyone around pause, only for Mina to smile even more. It's because I'm an alien. Izuku's eyes widened beyond what Aijiro thought possible, but Eri became more confused. What's an alien? Well, Mina started with a cheeky grin. Aliens are people from the stars and other planets. I came to Earth to eat good food and have lots of fun. Eri's eyes seemed to sparkle as Mina continued to have her fun. Aijiro decided to join in, lifting up the little girl's mood the best they could. Izuku, though, discreetly brought his left hand to rest on the girl's head as he looked at his Omnitrix. If it stored alien DNA, wouldn't it be able to detect it? Omnitrix, he mentally stated, scan for any nearby life forms that don't register as human eye in silent mode. The hourglass flashed yellow, the dial spinning slowly until it stopped. The screen changed from a yellow hourglass to a simple text. No alien life detected. Oh good, she was just messing around with Aerie. You should have guessed. It wouldn't be smart if someone just went around announcing they were an alien. The planet would probably react to aliens just like they did with Quarks, badly. It was a miracle that after a few hundred years of violence that they found a balance. Well, he contributed a huge part of that to All Might. His watch flashed again, gaining his interest. Turn on background scanning for alien life forms. That sounded handy. If he ever came close to an alien, he would know about it. Maybe they would know about the Omnitrix, or what if they needed help that they couldn't ask your everyday human without exposing themselves, although he was asked to keep the Omnitrix safe. Was it a good idea to let aliens know about it, even if it was to help them? Izuku. Oh, he looked up to see Ijiro point to Mina with his thumb, who was pouting at the green-haired boy. Geez, what's a girl got to do to get your attention, she complained, leaning further back in her chair. Well, Izuku tried to think of a response, but memories of earlier that day came to mind. Ijiro noticed a shift in attitude and tapped Mina's arms with his knuckles. Saw thee. She apologized, realizing what she had said. No, it's okay, I just don't want to talk about it. The awkward air eventually became heavy enough to feel on their shoulders. Ijiro glanced back between Mina and Izuku, unsure of what to do to fix the situation. Luckily, he didn't have to as Mina got up and stuck out her hand to the boy. Let's start over. I'm Mina Ishido. I like dancing, hanging out with friends, and I hope to be a hero one day. Oh, and I hate bullies. It seemed genuine enough so that Izuku fought through his natural social anxieties and grabbed her hand. Nice to meet you. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I like quirks, heroes, and I'm looking forward to seeing your debut. I guess I need to do this now, Ijiro said, getting up from his seat and putting a fist against his chest. I'm Ijiro Kirishima. I love anything manly, including heroes, and that's what I'm going to be. You're going to be a hero, I can see that, Mina said, finding a kindred spirit in becoming a hero. Heck yeah, Izuku is going to help me set up an agency, and everything he's wicked smart, so maybe you can get in on the deal. Seriously, she twirled around to Izuku. Would that be all right with you? I don't mind. He nervously smiled. As long as you're serious, if you start training with Ijiro now, it could already improve your teamwork that plenty of heroes struggle with adding new sidekicks that File Ready Haven's fighting style send incorporating. His muttering continued as he pulled a notebook out of somewhere and was already writing down the information he sputtered out. Aerie was in awe about how fast Izuku could draw the girl in front of him along with potential hero costumes alongside Ijiro. Mina's mind, on the other hand, was spinning in trying to keep up with the boy. She had to sit down. Smack! Everyone stopped to look at Mina, who had fallen to the ground on her rear. Ouch, what gives? Her chair was 3 feet away from her. Just how did it get over there, Izuku? And Ijiro said nothing, only watching her get up and go to grab the chair. Mina's hand reached out, grabbed the top of it, as it grabbed her wrist with a wooden hand. She panicked as her brain caught up with what was happening. A chair had grabbed her. It was alive. Aerie shouted in equal fear, tucking into Izuku's arms as Mina tried to escape the chair that was trying to eat Mina. Guys, help me, Mina shouted to the boys, who were purposefully ignoring her. Snack time, it said in a garbled voice, the seat opening up into a mouth filled with splinters. The pink girl tried to crawl away, but more wooden arms latched out to pull her in. Deciding Mina had enough, she brought her leg back and kicked into the side of it. The wood leg exploded into purple mud. That's enough, Himiko, Izuku said in a slightly stern voice. The chair stopped its advances, letting Mina go. In a swirl of sludge, it transformed into the familiar blonde. Buyu, you know fun. Himiko playfully frowned at Izuku, but noticed the little girl hiding away. Oh, I'm sorry. Did that scare you, Aerie? She didn't respond, causing guilt to build up in Himiko for her little prank. Who are you, Mina asked, still on the floor. Himiko pushed her negative thoughts down and put on a smile. Himiko Midoriya, pro gamer. Aijiro snorted at that. Pro gamer. Hey, I am totally a pro. You don't even play ranked. I don't need to waste away my time with that. Please, you spend more time on Minecraft than any other game. That's because I get a ton of requests for Minecraft. Watching the scene play out, Mina just sat in confusion until Izuku leaned down to explain. Himiko streams a bunch of games and takes requests. Aijiro always teases her about how she can never take any games seriously and just messes around. I don't think she's actually finished one game she has. I heard that Himiko's arms stretched out to pinch Izuku's cheek. Ow. The blonde came over to Mina, not letting go of her grip on Izuku. Don't listen to them. I'm good at the games, but it's more entertaining for people if I play them like I don't know what I'm doing. Oh cool, Mina jumped up, forgetting about the terrifying prank. Himiko and Mina became quick friends, adding to the mania that was the Midoriya household. Since Aijiro, Mina, and Himiko were naturally outgoing, they spent the afternoon chatting away. Izuku, on the other hand, managed to sneak away with the tired girl in his arms. When they reached his bedroom, Izuku opened up the covers of his bed and started to lay Eri down. He smiled, seeing her eyes try so hard to stay open. She had a belly full of food and a hell of a day between the running, the stress, and now very energetic people hanging around in the living room. Izuku got up to leave her to get some well-deserved sleep, but a small hand shot out and grabbed his own. Please don't go, she pleaded. Not wanting to experience another heartbreak in the same day by upsetting Eri, he complied and got in the bed with her. She burrowed back into him, laying her head on his shoulder as he wrapped his arms around her. Yeah, this felt right. The door clicked, making Eri tiredly shift her attention to it. Izuku, your friends are Inko stopped, seeing the two under the blankets. She said nothing, only pulling out her phone and taking a photo. I'll let them know you're busy. Izuku nodded in embarrassment as his mother left. Gosh, why did her watching anything he did feel so weird? Maybe it was a family thing. In an office miles away, All Might's former sidekick, Sir Naitai, walked through the front doors into his agency. They had only been open for a few years now, but have quickly proven to be top tier in resolving cases and taking care of organized crimes. Their most recent job was to investigate what remained of the Yakuza. It wasn't viewed as a large task, given how much influence they lost when quirks entered the world. Yet they somehow still eluded the police and heroes well enough to keep their actions hidden. A new drug entered the scene that enabled criminals to greatly enhance their quirks for a short amount of time. So far, all things pointed back to the Yakuza, but only by word. No evidence came back giving them anything to work with. Centipede. Naitai called out to one of his current employees at the front desk. Yes, the large man turned to face his boss. Did anything happen while I was on patrol? Actually, yes. We got a call regarding information about one of the Yakuza members. A detective said they ran into a situation and wanted to talk to you more about it. That was very good information to have, but he didn't get his hopes up. Very well. Did you send me their number? Yes, sir. Everything should be in your email. So, the police came across something regarding the case. Not unusual, but with the massive population of heroes, the police didn't often come across something before another agency did. He went straight to his personal office, decorated with just about every piece of All Might memorabilia he had collected over the years. As soon as he checked the email on his phone, he recognized the number. More so the name attached to it. Wasting no more time, he called it. Ring ring, hello, Detective Sakachi here. Sakachi, this is Naitai. I just got back and heard you wanted to talk to me about a case. Ah, have you read the report? I'm reading it as we speak. His thumb scrolled down the information, absorbing it as the detective was on the line. Wait, why did you call before you read it? Because by the time I finished reading the report, our introductions will have finished. So does that mean you finished reading it? Almost, but there is one critical thing I noticed that I wanted to address before going further. And what's that? The girl, Eri. You left her in the care of a random family. They're not random. I've known them for quite some time now. The Midoriyas are good people. I see. Are you in frequent contact with them? I'm meeting them once a week now for dinner, but I didn't talk to them as often before. I worked 2 of the kids' cases, and now I'm working another kid's case in their care. They sound like trouble. Hey, it's not their fault. They just happen to run into it more than others. Mostly the young boy, Izuku Midoriya. He was the one to run into Overhaul. Yes, luckily he managed to get away from him with Eri. Something was off about the story painted here. What is his quirk? He's quirkless. The image became less and less clear. Just how did a quirkless boy manage to evade a grown adult? From his own digging, he managed to find out the man's quirk in the registry. It was a frightening quirk, and if he really was invested in keeping the girl to himself, then it wouldn't have been a problem to deal with the boy. It even states that he was planning on using his quirk. So what happened? Something on your mind. It doesn't fit. Nothing is coming together from this story. Yet your quirk told you. Yep, the kid was telling the truth. Somehow he has managed to luck out again from danger. Something was different in the man's tone this time. You think something else is going on? Well, that's the thing. Strange things, unexplainable things are happening around Midoriya from what I can tell. Go on. After the second incident involving him, I did some digging. When he was around 10 years old, he was taken to the hospital for severe burns from bullying. Another boy experiencing a rare case of quirk cancer was there as well. There was hardly anything they could do, but somehow they managed to suppress his quirk to the point where he could fight the cancer. I haven't heard of any medical technology that advanced or any procedures similar to that. That's just it. They hardly have anything to prove it even existed. Even then, they never attempted to do anything like it or publish their findings. That was odd. I assume you're going somewhere with this. I wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't important. I know you like things to the point. Go on. Right. So checking images on the parent's social media showed he was more than cured. It was like he was never sick. Here's the thing, though. Right after he became close friends with Izuku, practically inseparable, but he couldn't use his quirk anymore. Both were viewed as quirkless. So once the boy showed up in Midoriya's life, he was essentially quirkless but healthy. Yes, but it doesn't stop there. Almost a year later, Eijiro Kirishima suddenly finds himself able to use his quirk again, but it's vastly different. He became a mutant type instead of a transformation with newfound hardened skin and able to produce red crystals. Have you managed to check his quirk factor? No, they couldn't draw blood from how tough his skin became. It sounds like a type of awakening, extremely rare but explainable. He's not the only one, though. Himiko Toga, a girl on the run, came into contact with Izuku. When we arrived, she no longer had a quirk, none. It vanished some point between her running away and that day. I tried looking into it, but nothing came up. And no suppressants were involved this time. None we could find in her blood. It's as if she was born quirkless. Yet it gets weirder. Just after visiting them regarding Eri's situation, she showed a new type of quirk. Her last one let her take on the form of anyone she has drank the blood of. Now she can shape-shift at will any part of her body into anything she can imagine. No need for blood. Both cases sounded like they were 2 separate quirks, nothing close to the rare cases of a quirk awakening. Usually it gave them a new way to use their power, or just increase the strength of it. This sounded different, as if someone was experimenting with children. You don't think he's involved, do you? I can't say for sure, but I don't know how else these kids would have brand new quirks after a time of quirklessness. Night Eye clenched his fist. The thought of that man being alive was infuriating, especially with how All Might had sacrificed so much to end a villain. We should let him know. I'm not against it, but I don't want to jump the gun. These kids should live normal lives to the best of their ability. The hero sighed as he dragged his fingers across his face, careful not to knock off his glasses. Send me everything you have so far. I'll see if there's any other common factors we could look into. Thank you. But if we go any further, let me interact with them first. They're comfortable with me already, and no offense, but you're not the greatest with kids. Noted. All right, thanks again for helping me with this. Expect a detailed email later in the evening. Thank you for your work. Goodbye. Bye. As soon as the call ended, Night-Eye had to sit down. Yes, they did gain some glimpse at Overhaul because of this, but now there's a completely different story happening. None of it made sense. Even if that villain was involved, just what was he planning taking the quirks of children and giving them new ones? It was possible that he wasn't involved at all, but nothing else could explain it. There was one factor that was tying itself into everything he was working on, though. Izuku Midoriya. A small noise pulled Izuku from his dreams. His room was dark save for the all-might night light plugged next to the door. Oh man, he fell asleep in his clothes, didn't he? Eri began to squirm in his arms. A patch on his shirt was slightly wet from her sweat soaking into it. Across her face was a tightened expression as she clung tighter and tighter onto his shirt. Eri. He nudged her shoulder, trying to gently wake her from her haunted sleep. She didn't respond. Her breathing started to pick up as her legs started to kick. No. He could only imagine the nightmare she might be having. She experienced a lot for someone her age and had plenty of fuel to her fears. Eri, wake up. Izuku wasn't sure this was how you were supposed to handle someone experiencing a nightmare, but it hurt to see her so scared from what he couldn't see. Her sudden scream pierced the quiet of the night. Every limb was thrashing around, smacking against him as he kept hold. Eri, wake up, he began to panic, holding her tight and lifting her out of bed with him. His efforts felt futile as she continued screaming in fear. Her eyes were shut tight as she continued to resist Izuku unconsciously. Quick thumping approached the door as Inko came bursting in. What's wrong? It's Eri, she won't wake up. Give her here, Inko demanded. Izuku complied quickly, trusting his mother with children more than himself. She held Eri against her shoulders and bounced her gently around as if she was a newborn. You're safe, it's all right. Inko whispered directly into Eri's ear with no sense of distraught. Eri continued to fight against everything but was beginning to slow down. The fear behind her screams turned to wailing tears as Eri stopped fighting the woman. Izuku stood there amazed as his mother stroked the little girl's hair gently and continued to whisper to her. Checking his clock, not even 2 minutes had gone by, yet they felt like an eternity. Eri's crying rested into small sniffling as Inko comforted her. There, everything is okay. You're safe. The little girl said nothing, but her more calm attitude relaxed Izuku immensely. Inko walked over to Izuku's bed and sat down on it with Eri. Feel better. Her small head nodded, then turned to Izuku. Reaching out her arms to the boy, he quickly got the message and picked her up himself and sat next to his mother. Inko smiled and rubbed her hand across her son's back. She must feel really safe around you. Yeah, Izuku agreed by her current actions, but why wasn't he able to help Eri when she began to pony ouch? Inko had pinched his back, frowning while looking at her son's face. You were thinking negative things, weren't you? It was less of a question and more of a statement. Inko rubbed the sore spot she just made and remained with the two. You used to have nightmares like that. Scary dreams that seemed so real that you couldn't tell when you had woken up. When Himiko first lived with us, were hers the same? Yes, Inko sighed, but she doesn't like to talk about it. Sometimes you just need to remind them where they are, and whatever they were scared of isn't there. He nodded, filing the information for later. Tomorrow, he would have to look into how to care for small, mentally scared children. Actually, what was he going to do about school? His stomach felt heavy thinking about the odds of running into her again. But Ijiro would be there, and Mina seemed fun. Yet what about Eri? Glancing at the woman beside him, his doubts about her care dwindled. His mother had done an excellent job at calming her down. She had even raised a quirkless son alone, and then added another one who had a troubled past. Eri was no doubt going to be looked after the most well-trained mother in handling distraught children. I'll let you to get back to sleep, but maybe read a story or watch something lighthearted so she has something to dream about. Inko got up and left Eri back in Izuku's care. She paused at the doorway, giving a loving smile at the two, and closed the door behind her. Izuku was now left with the girl, thinking of 1,000 ways he could turn Eri's thoughts away from whatever troubled her. Will you? Eri started, getting Izuku's full attention. Will you stop the bad man from taking me away? He wasn't entirely sure what to do, more so how to even stop villains. Around him he took in the smiles of All Might, how they inspired hope, trust, and the promise that things would be all right. Izuku took on a similar smile for Eri as she looked at his face, but he dared not completely copy the #1 hero. This was his smile, and he'd do it for her. He'd be a hero for Eri. Of course I will. An idea sparked in his mind as he caught his notebooks in the corner of his vision. He adjusted Eri so she was sitting on his lap and facing forward as he laid in his bed. Holding up the Omnitrix in front of her, he showed it to her. Remember this, he asked with newfound confidence. Eri gave a small nod. Yeah. She reached out in her curiosity, fiddling with the dial. It took her somewhere different. Wherever it was like Izuku's room, but different. It's a special tool to help me be a hero. With it, I'll keep you safe. Izuku reached out his own right hand and pressed the side buttons. A hologram sprung to life above the watch, surprising Eri. A figure stood with 4 arms and 4 eyes. It looked different than any of the men she saw in the tunnels. Who is it, she asked, absorbed by the green light. That's a Tetraman. His kind are super strong and are hard to hurt. They're some of the best fighters. Tata. Eri tried to say the name, but was unused to pronouncing such long words that didn't sound like anything she's heard before. Izuku chuckled inside at her efforts, looking at the watch face and the data displayed under the hologram in small text. He noticed there was a tab under his species name. Codename 4 Arms. Codename Wait. Do all the aliens in here have codenames? Wow. All that time spent making hero names for them, and it turns out the Omnitrix already has them. Well, he was planning on calling this guy Handyman. 4 Arms seems a bit more like an observation. Hopefully the others have better names. You can call him 4 Arms, Eri. He left her with that, then scrolled to the next alien. It was much smaller and less bulky. This is a Sonorosian that can make super loud noises to knock back villains. Alone he might be small, but he can make a ton of copies of himself and make bigger sound with his friends. You can call him Echo. I guess that name makes sense. Her hand reached out, passing through the floating 3D image. Izuku smiled and showed her more. All these guys are heroes in the watch. So when I use it to help you, every single hero in here is helping too. An army of heroes, all wanting to keep you safe, Eri. Eri stayed there, her eyes capturing every alien he scrolled through. Each one had their own quirks, or some had lots of quirks. Izuku was glad he was able to take her mind away from the nightmare, and was happy to learn about the codenames already established to the aliens. They were easier to remember than the species names, although he already had a hefty amount memorized and cataloged. Some are pretty stupid, like Guy, but Eri seemed to love them. Something did catch his attention as he showed them to her. A few in the early playlists had previous code names, as if they were rewritten, like Ben Mummy, Ben Wolf, and Ben Victor. It sounded like an American named thrown with them. This Ben name, was he a previous holder of the Omnitrix? If only he could meet Professor Paradox again and ask him questions about it. Bookshelves stretched down the halls, all filled with bits and pieces of collected knowledge from many centuries. The light from the outside world seeped through the windows, fluorescent bulbs only able to keep the dark corners watched. Each book was neatly placed in where they had to be, organized with a system used for many years. Yet what was the point if there was no one to read them? The library was empty, not a trace of any life with the texts. No worms. No cold. Pat. But something was disturbing the frozen world. Izuku. That something was Eri running barefoot in a large All Might t-shirt with pajama bottoms. Her hair had been dyed dark green to match Izuku's. She carried a picture book as she ran to where she knew she would find the boy. Turning around the corner, she found him at a table next to a window with several books open around him. Izuku was writing in one of his many notebooks when he looked to her. He wore one of his more casual, All Might-styled hoodies. What is it, Eri? She hobbled over some displayed books on the ground, being careful not to trip or rip any by accident. When she got next to him, she showed him the book she had. Are these real? Eri asked innocently. The cover of the book displayed a whale. When she opened it, more and more pictures of carrying sea life were shown. You told me that some books were real and others were made up, but these look really real. Without warning, she hopped up in his lap, jolting Izuku at the impact. As he was busy recoiling, she adjusted to sit in his lap and plop her book right on top of his work. She flipped the pages until one settled on the image of a beach. Like this, if there's really that much water, then why does Mom talk about how much it costs when you take long showers? Izuku chuckled, finding the wind in his lungs again. That's a good question, Eri. There's a lot of water on the earth, but only a small part of it has water we can use to clean ourselves and drink. He ran his hand through her hair, stopping at the horn that was connected to her forehead. It had grown much larger over the last year, but every time they asked about her quirk, she would shut down. Hopefully this was supposed to happen, but more likely it was a stockpiling quirk or something that needed to be shaved down as it grew like hooves. Okay, Eri nodded in understanding, but flipped to another page featuring colorful creatures swimming in the ocean. But what about these? Are these real? Izuku nodded. Yes, they're called fish. Gasp, we ate them. Well, not these ones. There's certain fish we eat, just like cows or other animals. And pigs, Eri smiled at him. Yep, we eat a lot of pigs. Izuku laughed along with Eri's antics. She had grown more and more open with him over the years. It helped when he took her to places like this, where she knew there was no one else but her and him. It felt strange talking so openly and loudly in a library, but when you have full access to Japan's largest library in the Omnitrix, it was hard not to take advantage of. He could even reset things to go back to before he arrived, never having to clean up his messes. Okay, maybe he was developing bad habits for the library. Guess he should avoid real ones. Can we see the FSH? Eri asked, pointing to another photo of one. Fish, they're called fish. Izuku corrected lovingly. Eri blinked, turned to the book, then back at him and gave him a wide grin. FSH. I swear you're doing it on purpose. Izuku picked her up as he got up, making her giggle as he squished her sides a little. Setting her down, he grabbed the notes he was taking. This time he decided to look over all the management revolving around hero agencies. From what he learned, a lot of it stemmed from good publicity right away and getting recognized by pro heroes. It would lead to sponsors, internships, and many other opportunities to get a respected name next to the starting hero. Then with the reputation, they would be able to get loans to get their own building and quickly hire along sidekicks. Most of the sidekicks would be either previous co-workers or hero course classmates. Sometimes they would send immediate internship or work-study offers to other high schoolers to help with busy work. Yet it wasn't a preferable option because of how little they could actually help out. There was also trying to put forth a formal agency form to the Hero Commission who regulated who was stationed where. If they demonstrated in times past that they were capable of handling villains, it would be a straight shot to wherever you wanted really, as long as you didn't interfere with another more known hero's routes. That didn't matter if you were an underground hero, but that was a whole different process. Aijiro and Mina were too loud and outgoing to ever be considered for underground work, so he skimmed those areas. His main concern with helping Aijiro and Mina start up an agency would be the competition with their generation. Quirks were growing stronger and more versatile over the ages, and Japan had the world's most competitive hero market. When they got into school, Izuku would have to gauge just how likely other hero course students would make it into the field. If a good amount were going to, then they'd have to find other avenues to support their jobs. A big way would be merchandise, interviews to get more known. Some heroes even had their own shows or movies to get money or reputation. If they were popular enough or known enough, people demanded to see more of them, which the Hero Commission would then either give them the option to do more TV time or better hero routes to do big flashy fights on live TV. Wow, it felt like the hero world was more entertainment than anything. Izuku Eri's pouting voice interrupted him. Crap, he'd accidentally slipped back into his notes. Sorry, got a little sidetracked. Izuku grabbed his notes and stuck his pencil into his pocket. Holding out his hand, Eri grabbed it easily. She was getting big fast, standing a head smaller than himself. Was this how Mom felt? Of course, he wasn't exactly the tallest boy in his class. Omnitrix. It beeped in response. Take us to save point 37. Confirmed. The American accented voice spoke back. Izuku discovered he could change it to something else, but he was used to it already. With a brief flash of green around them, their new landscape was of a large forest with plenty of pines and aspens all around them. The ground was covered in dirt and old decayed leaves with the occasional shrub. In front of them was a clearing right beside a small lake that could be argued it was a large pond. The sunlight was barely skimming the top of the trees, but with a quick press of a button and rotating the dial, Izuku changed the time to be just about noon. Eri had already ran forward, her feet squishing into the moist mud as she splashed in the water. Izuku would have warned her to be careful, but luckily there were plenty of safeguards for physically being in the Omnitrix. For one, they didn't need to breathe or eat, just suspended in a state that allowed them to exist within the Omnitrix. Another thing was they couldn't be hurt or changed in any way. Even as he watched Eri search the water for the fish knee deep in the water didn't cling to her or soak into her clothes. It was always safe in here, which he was thankful for. I can't find any FSH, Eri called out, waist deep in the water. Izuku searched the still water with his eyes. If everything was suspended in the Omnitrix, the fish shouldn't move unless they touched them. Omnitrix. Beep. Are there any forms of life stored in the planetary walk-around? 2 life forms detected. Well, that answered that. Eri, he called out with his hands cupped. Sorry, but I guess there aren't any fish in the Omnitrix. We'll have to find them outside. Okay, she trudged back. No mud or wet clothes on her. That was probably the best feature that avoided them being yelled at by Mom. If she found out he touched magma to know what the texture felt like, she would have flipped out. Ready, Eri announced, grabbing his hand. Izuku nodded. Then they were engulfed in another flash of green. So, they're in there right now, Ijiro asked, sitting on Izuku's bed, Himiko off to the side on the computer catching up on her homeschooling. She had procrastinated a bunch, gaming and streaming to the point it was all she ever did when she was awake. Inko got an email with her current report card and grounded her from all video games until she got caught up in class. Yep, she simply replied, her mind numbed from the stupid test she had to do. Ijiro was looking at the mysterious watch that sat on his best friend's desk. He was always curious about it. Hell, it was probably one of the biggest secrets of the world. It hurt to think that Izuku didn't like to talk about it, but he would respect it. Though he seemed to let Eri know so much despite her being the youngest, and them only knowing her for a year. He had known Izuku for most of his life, but he only revealed a fraction of what he did with it. The only thing he knew about it was 1. Izuku could delete quirks and diseases revolved around it. 2. Izuku could grant new quirks, but never call them quirks. 3. He could teleport. 4. There was apparently some inner storage space he could access, and he found that out from talking to Himiko. Lastly, there was something revolving around the made-up heroes he had and the watch. Izuku had so much detail about each one and compared him to one of the crystal ones frequently and as a reference for his power. When they got into middle school, he started to close off anything revolving around those super guys and keeping it to himself. He thought he'd be fine with it, that Izuku could keep his own secrets and it would be cool. Then Izuku asked him and his family to not tell Mina about the Omnitrix, he called it. Inko was very supportive about the idea, wanting no one to know more than was needed or else it might bring unwanted attention. Hey, Ijiro said openly. What Himiko replied, not looking away from the screen. What do you think about Izuku not telling us much about his watch? She shrugged. Don't really care. If he wants to tell us more, he will. He could take away your powers, though. Himiko rolled her head and gave him an annoyed look. Izuku, you think Izuku would make us quirkless again? His heart clenched at that. You're right. He wouldn't do anything like that. Then there's nothing to worry about. She rolled herself back to her assignments, stretching her lips to grab a small container of Jell-O and slurping the contents within a second. Your mom seems pretty worried. He grumbled. That's just how Mom is. I think she's got a lot of good reasons, though. Like what? Like when word gets out about someone who can delete quirks and give new ones that are arguably more powerful than the previous ones, two things would happen. She held up her hand, stretching her fingers into little figures of himself, her, and Izuku. A cage formed around them all. We either all get locked up by either villains or the government and experimented upon as they contain the potential threat. Her lips stretched out to a nearby soda with a straw and took a sip of the contents. The clay cage around the figures dispersed as lots of people with cameras were formed. Or two, we're watched by the world, and our private lives are gone forever. People begging for us to be sealed away or forced to give away the secrets to controlling quirks. Both options didn't sound very good. Then why does Izuku let Eri in to watch? How come he's trusting the youngest of us with the biggest secrets? Himiko groaned, slinking her head back until it touched the floor. It then turned around to look at Aijiro. When has Izuku used his fancy watch? When someone tried to hurt him really bad, Aijiro answered. But the look on Himiko's face said it wasn't the right one. Well, yes, but there's a bigger reason. He raised one of his crystal eyebrows, waiting for elaboration. He used it to help us and Eri. You think she'd be fine the day after he rescued her from a villain? Himiko pulled her head back up and squashed it in place. Aijiro nodded. Yeah, Izuku had helped out a lot with his watch. But it's been a year from what you've told me. He's practically gone in there every day with her. Remember when Mamadoriya called us during school, asking where Eri was? Izuku had her in his watch while we were at school. Took me about a year to ask for my quirk. Himiko then showed off her powers again, making her fist into his head and speaking through it. Hi, I'm Aijiro, but you can call me IG Bro. I'm super jealous of a traumatized little girl who's taken my best friend's attention, even though we go to school every day, work out mornings and afternoons, and visit one another almost every weekend. It's not that, and you know it. Aijiro sighed, flopping backwards onto his buddy's bed. Oh, really? It's keeping secrets. I'm not good at them, and if someone's keeping something from me, I feel like they don't trust me. Well, can't help you there. Himiko then resumed, ignoring his existence, and typed away. Aijiro somehow knew talking to her about it wasn't going to get anywhere. So he pulled out his phone to type to the one person who always wanted to chat. Crimson Riot, hey Mina, what's up? Alien Queen board. Alien Queen super board. Alien Queen need Eri's squishy cheeks to pinch. Crimson Riot, have you asked Himiko if she'd turn into Eri for you? Alien Queen tried it. Alien Queen wasn't the same. Alien Queen HBY. Crimson Riot same, came by Izuku's place to hang out, but the whole fam is busy. Alien Queen, get your cheeks over here, and I'll squish em. Crimson Riot, my cheeks are as hard as diamonds. There won't be any squishing. Alien Queen, does that include your butt? Crimson Riot, haha. Crimson Riot, not letting you touch the butt. Alien Queen, not yet 3. SKRE. Aijiro closed his eyes to prevent being blinded. When he opened them, Izuku stood there in his All Might hoodie with a matching Eri in his t-shirt. Aijiro. Joe, when did you get here? Aijiro picked himself up and gave his buddy a smirk. I live here now. Eri seemed to beam at that. Really? Yep, the red chandelier got to his feet and ruffled her hair, getting a giggle from her. Izuku stood there a little dumbfounded, so Aijiro placed a hand on the guy's shoulder. Hey, I was just messing with you. Oh, Eri whined before investigating her sister's work. Both boys laughed, seeing Eri already demanding Himiko to transform into various fishy things. Hey Eri, be sure to put on some outside clothes, okay? Okay. She then went to her drawers in Izuku's room and pulled out her own clothes. When they went shopping for Eri, all she wanted were clothes like Izuku's. So at least half of them sported some type of All Might theme with a few other heroes thrown in. There were a couple other clothes that Inko and Himiko picked out for her, like some cat-themed shirts with skirts, but she hardly ever wore them. Going somewhere, Aijiro asked, curious. It wasn't often Izuku took Eri outside, given circumstances. The frequently dyed hair and emerald contacts she had available to her did help. Only someone who got up close could tell it was her, and they had to be looking for a while beyond what anyone would be comfortable with. Yeah, we're going to head to the aquarium so Eri can see the fish. FSH, she shouted as she was putting on some pants. Since Ijiro was practically family, it never bothered anyone if she changed in front of them. Izuku chuckled. Yeah, we're going to see lots of FSH. You want to come see some FSH with us? He asked his bro. Ijiro smiled at that. Of course, bro, it's been a while since we've been there. You okay if I invite Mina? Sure. Hey, Himiko. Grounded. All right. Anything from the gift shop you want. Himiko turned around and grinned at him. Gummy FSH. FSH, Eri cheered, now wearing one of Izuku's old All Might hoodies. Her horn managed to fit inside one of the fake tufts of hair, so it was a good way to hide it in plain sight. FSH Ijiro joined in flexing his rock-hard muscles. Izuku copied his pose, but he was clearly not as built as his friend was. FSH, all of them shouted together. Shut the hell up, a distant, muffled voice shouted. Himiko shot out of her seat, opened the window, and shouted back at the neighbor. Mind your own business, you old fart. Himiko Izuku grabbed his sister and pulled her back in. Sorry, Mr. Torino. The smaller, gray, bearded man waved his cane at them from his window. If I have to listen to one more stupidly pronounced word yelling from over there while I'm trying to take a nap, I'm going to smack your asses until they're redder than A. Ijiro shut the window. The yellings of the older man muffled away as all four of them were left in an awkward moment. While that happened, come on, Eri, time to put your contacts in. He, Gui's Mina, waved over to the three approaching figures. Eri was enjoying her perch on Izuku's shoulders, patting his head like a drum. Luckily, Ijiro's constant nagging about working out on the daily has made tasks like this hardly tax the boy. The redhead immediately jogged up to Mina to greet the girl. My man, he said, slapping his hand into hers. My girl, she replied. Izuku wasn't really sure when the ritual started, but it was too late to stop it. Eri seemed just as confused, if not more. Wait, I thought Ijiro was a boy. He is. Izuku could only hope he was right, not like he ever saw the boy naked or anything. But it's not like he could question the lad's testosterone levels that exceeded every other male in a 1-mile radius. Hey, Izuku, hey, Eri. Mina walked over, reaching out to grab herself a piece of sweet, airy cheek. The girl leaned back the farther that Mina reached out, Izuku struggling to balance the squirming. No, Eri yelled, slapping the hand away. Come on, just a little squish. No. Gimme them cheeks. No. Izuku grabbed Mina's hand, ending the mini-battle. Please stop, my spine can only twist in so many ways. Fine. She sighed, but then grinned mischievously. I'll have to settle for yours then. Ippy Izuku's whole body tensed, feeling Mina's hand firmly grasp his cheek, and not the one on his face. Leave the cheeks alone. Eri leaned down to swat Mina's head, fingers accidentally tracing over her horns. Mina quivered as her horns twitched. Eri, you know how sensitive horns are. Eri's grumpy face showed the girl was willing to show no mercy to those who assault her brother. Come on, let's just go see the fish. Izuku spoke, earning a small smack from Eri. FSH, she corrected. FSH, Ijiro joined. FSH Mina threw her fist in the air, not really sure what was going on, but loving the energy. FSH Eri's emotions turned a full 180 as everyone joined her war cry. FSH, 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 they all chanted as they went into the aquarium. Whoa, Eri watched the stingrays swimming over their heads. She lifted her hand to touch them, but was halted by the glass. Izuku smiled, seeing her enjoy another piece of the world for the first time. Hey, Mina patted his shoulder. He glanced over to her, curious to her sudden gentle tone that wasn't playful. Anyone ever tell you you'd make a good dad? No. And he ended it right there, simple, sweet, to the point. Sorry, I know that sounded a lot meaner than I wanted it to. It's fine. She recoiled a little at his bluntness, but matched his seriousness. I just wanted to know how you're holding up. I know it was a crazy day when we met and all that, and you never talked about her. You think you're ready to move on?" Izuka nodded, smiling up at Eri. "I moved on a long time ago." "Yeah, no more meanies," Eri nodded, hearing of the girl that used her brother from Himiko plenty of times. A slight twitch of a frown came around Mina's face. "That's not what I meant," she whispered. "Hey guys, check out this shark." Ijiro pointed to the great white swimming in a large tank. Eri leaned Izuku's head forward to get him to move closer to the tank. Mina followed, putting the thought of what happened away and focused on having fun. Though a certain redhead dragged her back into it. "PST, Mina." "Yeah. Did you talk to Izuku about, I don't think he's open to it. Not now, at least." She gave a sad smirk to the boy. "At this rate, he'll never be." Ijiro sighed. It was bugging him how Izuku kept closing himself off more and more. About the watch. About his feelings. About almost everything. The only things he could keep the boy talking about were heroes and their future in the career, but even that was touchy if he approached the ones in his special notebooks. At this rate, it felt like the friendship was becoming really one-sided. "Well, we're still in middle school," Mina said, perking up again. "I bet things will change when we all get into UA. Don't you worry that rocky head of yours." She patted the red crystals atop the teen's head. "Yeah," Ijiro smiled. "We're still going to be heroes together." He held up his fist. "Ah, totally." She bumped the held-up fist. "Yaon." Eri attempted to stifle her yawn. Yet the 3 hours of tugging Izuku along to everything that caught her, I drained her batteries. Her head started to bob, her arms clutching the stuffed salmon in her arms. Mina stealthily went to pinch those adorable cheeks. An exhausted, possessed arm slapped it away, guarding her face. "No, Tachi." The pink girl kept her mouth closed as she giggled away. Ijiro snapping photos he knows Himiko would bother them about. "You got the gummy FSH." Izuka nodded, reaching into his pocket to grab said chewy delectables. Something else brushed his fingers in his hoodie. Taking it out revealed a letter. "What's that?" Mina said, instantly interested. Ijiro also not discreetly looking over his shoulder. "I don't know. It must have been there all day." Izuku turned the envelope over, eyes widening when he saw what was written. To Izuku. From Professor Paradox. "What's it say?" Mina bugged him, shaking his arm. "You can't read it." Izuku thought the handwriting was a little off, but it was definitely eligible. "Hey, I was putting off my English courses until high school." English. He examined the letter again. It looked Japanese, or that's what his brain kept telling him. Izuku glanced at his watch, wondering if it was translating it directly in his head. That was cool. "Izuku, what is it?" Ijiro asked with a concerned voice. Izuku looked back to the letter. If the professor was reaching out, this was a huge priority. "Sorry, I'm about to get home, sooner rather than later." From the look that Izuku gave his watch, the message was clear to him. Izuku quickly left the two, power walking to the nearest alleyway. "Wait," Mina said, confused. "Isn't his house the other way?" "Skre." Izuku teleported into his bedroom, about to set Eri down, but spotted Ragdoll sitting on his computer looking at him in shock. She slowly grabbed the headset, setting it down on the desk. "Don't tell Mom." Izuku just nodded, letting his sister transform back to her usual self and step away from the computer. "I'll just let Eri take her nap." She exited, leaving Izuku alone with his little sister. Laying Eri back into their bed, he put the covers over her. She hugged her salmon closer to her, enjoying the plushy FSH. Izuku patted her head, earning a sleepy grin from her. Now to see what this letter was about. Sitting back down at his desk, he opened up the envelope and took the letter out. "Dear Izuku, hello, young one. I decided to check your timeline for any potential anomalies that might interfere with the cosmic currents. Not that the details will be explained, but it is something to address at some point." Izuku wondered if any time travelers made sense. "Anyways, I ran into a lovely young lady that had plenty of good things to say about you. She informed me of a particular time that I should reach out and get you started in avoiding a potential disaster. Disaster. By this time, you would have come to accept a new member of your family. Her quirk, as you probably guessed, is a stockpiling one. If left and used for too long, the consequences could be devastating. Normally, I wouldn't interfere in things like this, but the state of the Omnitrix and anything regarding time are within my domain. Thomas was a time problem. Yes, a time problem. Is he listening right now? No, I wasn't listening, but she was or is. His head snapped around to see what he was talking about. Right behind him was Ari, sitting up, not asleep. He pulled the letter from behind him and read it with Ari in front of him. Don't be too alarmed, otherwise she will be. As you've noticed, her horn has been growing to a very noticeable point. It's the focus point of her quirk. Now is the time to begin helping her and training it. There's a list of steps to experiment with, including things to look out for. Have fun. Professor Paradox. P.S. Ari loves you very much, and you've been a wonderful influence on her life. That last part was written in different handwriting and didn't feel the same as reading the other parts of the letter. Omnitrix. Beep. Is any kind of translator function active? Affirmative. Universal translator is active. Disable for 15 seconds. Confirmed. The English lettering became obvious and much harder to read. Yes, he took a course in middle school, and he watched plenty of All Might clips in America. For some reason, though, the last part was written in Japanese, good Japanese. Izuku Ari rubbed her horn, stirring Izuku's gut as he noticed it. Ari. She stopped rubbing her tingling horn to listen. I love you, he said in the most gentle way he could. She smiled right back at him. I love you too. Behold. Mina slapped her phone in front of Izuku and Aijiro on the lunch table. Both curiously looked down at the screen. Displayed was some sort of article about UA. Aijiro quirked an eyebrow, turning to Izuku for an answer. Not even he could decipher what got the Pinkette so excited. What am I looking at? Aijiro finally gave an ask. Mina gasped, a hand over her chest as she tried to process what she was hearing. How could you guys not know? Both boys blinked. Know what? Izuku asked. Seriously, she slammed her hands down and leaned closer to get into Izuku's face, her horns poking against his forehead. He might have been embarrassed if it wasn't for how intense she was right now. I thought you would be on top of our teachers. What? Izuku grabbed the phone with lightning speed, searching for something, anything that might reveal what he missed. Over the years, his fanboyism has grown with the knowledge he had been collecting for his future in helping run an agency. It opened a new path of understanding how little decisions in policy or laws could greatly change the way heroes do their work. His fingers stopped, a statement from the school itself regarding its staff. They were opening up positions for teachers. This information wouldn't have excited very many, but these were students trying to get into UA. Izuku had suggested they could categorize which heroes they would have expected to be working with and what they could be learning from them. So far, they had a roster of 20 heroes they've identified to be working at the school. Aijiro had dug deep and made labels to identify fight styles and combos to each one and what people like to see, while Mina had been finding out which parts of their character and costumes had done to boost their popularity. Izuku was more well-rounded, keeping an eye on just about everything and throwing it all in his notebooks. Whoa, do you think they're thinking about firing anybody? Aijiro asked, pulling out his own phone to use to find the available info. All I can get from this is how they're hiring more. Izuku said, still borrowing Mina's phone. Mina, have any of the heroes working there done anything to hurt their image? She shook her head. No, I thought maybe Midnight pulled something with one of the students, but nothing new. You think it's because they might be prepping for some stronger quirks? It's possible, Izuku mumbled. We'll have to watch out for any heroes doing their work closer to the school. It would give us an idea about who might be trying to apply. Oh man, this is exciting. Aijiro threw his arms up, smacking the table with a loud crack. I hope they get some guys who have some good durability. So far, they don't have any real tanks. Power Loader could be considered tank, Izuku offered, but his bro shook his head. Nah, Even with his suit, he can't really take a hit. He hardly ever actually goes face to face with a villain. Yeah, Mina added. Plus, he's diverted a ton of his efforts towards helping other rescue groups. There's a rumor that the reason he's spending more time with the Pussycats is because he's dating Pixie Bob. Wow, Izuku blinked. They would probably work really well together. Exactly. Mina grabbed her phone back from Izuku. A lot of people want it to happen, but it works better as a rumor. Their themes don't mesh well. So, we still down for watching the sports festival this Friday? Ijiro asked. Yeah, we are. Mina shouted. Their excitement was starting to earn more whispers and looks from a few other students in the cafeteria. Izuku couldn't help but notice that over time, they had started giving his friends the same looks that they gave him. Ijiro had been great at handling anyone who would try to bully them, while Mina would shut down any rumors that flew from the girls' mouths. Izuku was just Izuku. Not like he could threaten to take their quirks away or anything to make them like him. That would be rude. Oh, he remembered. By the way, Mr. Tsukachi is probably going to join us. Is that all right? You mean your private detective? Ijiro joked. I don't mind. Mina shrugged. He's already at your place every week. Great, Izuku nodded. In that case, I'll let him know. Without a moment to lose, he got his phone out to text a family friend. All might, hey, my friends don't mind you coming over to watch the festival. Magnifying glass, are you sure this old man won't cramp on your style right? All might, it's fine. Magnifying glass, thank you, Izuku. In that case, I'd be happy to come. Nao Mesa Tsukachi smiled at his phone, putting it away as he felt the odd look of the old man next to him. Was it the kid? The short man asked, dragging his fingers through his short beard. Yeah, it was. The detective nodded, sitting down on the couch. You're getting pretty close to the case. Torino looked out his window, seeing a certain green-haired girl with a glowing horn holding an old apple in her backyard. The apple was shimmering with the same light, the rot turning a bright red. She cut off the light of her horn, smiling and taking a bite of the refreshing fruit. It wasn't supposed to be a case to begin with, Sorahiko. Nao Mesa sighed. I just happened to notice something with a family I was getting to know. A family you got to know through multiple cases and then got close when they were wrapping up. Only then did you spot another thing that caught your eye. Torino started. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, getting friendly with them, that is. The older man sat on the couch next to the detective, relaxing into the cushions and patting the armrest. I'm not going to complain. Night, I even got me this lovely house to retire in as long as I kept an eye out for any hint of all for one. All for one, the biggest one-man threat either could think of. There have been plenty of people with military power, influence, or something else that they use to do horrible things. The difference between them and all for one is that a bullet could kill those men, not the villain. It took generations to cultivate one quirk to equal the man's power and put him down. Maybe they were being skeptical. Quirks were strange and did unpredictable things at times. Yet the thought of all for one using the Midoriya family for his own purposes compelled Nao Mesa to make sure everything was all right. Have you noticed anything odd? Nao Mesa asked. Well, they're an odd bunch, Torino huffed, but then put a finger on his chin. There's one thing I don't get, though. No matter how many times I see it, I can't wrap my head around it. The old man felt his shoulder grabbed, a distressed Nao Mesa looking like he was about to fight someone. What is it? Has a sketchy figure been coming by the house, lately talking with them about odd subjects? Has Inko noticed or done anything? Torino became serious, grabbing the man's wrist and putting his arm down. Yeah, there's been someone like that talking to Inko, but I don't think she realizes what's happening. Nao Mesa got up, pacing to vent the energy he would want to use to punch whoever was causing her trouble. I can get a squad to intercept the man and take him in for questioning. I've earned a good enough reputation that they wouldn't bother to question it. There I can interrogate him personally. You're going to interrogate yourself? Huh? Torino started laughing, amused by the younger man's confusion. Don't tell me you thought I wouldn't notice. Notice what? The old man stopped his laughing, becoming more curious than humorous. For a fellow with a lie-detecting quirk, you sure suck at it yourself. Nao Mesa scrambled for some excuse to change the subject. He didn't want to think about that. He was already incredibly close to the case, but getting any closer was stupid. Oi, Gran Torino said grumpily to get his attention, but he softened his hard attitude for once. You still have your shot at a life that isn't focused entirely on work. Don't become some washed-up man who never bothered to slow down and enjoy the simple life with someone. Otherwise, when you retire from work, there's nothing else to look forward to. The detective simply nodded, taking the advice to think about for later. I should probably get going now. Sure. Just remember what I told you. The detective decided to leave the old man to ramble to himself. The advice he gave, it made sense to some degree. Yet no one could settle down when there was a monster out there who would use everyone in your life against you. He couldn't rest easy yet, not until they were safe. Come on, one more rep. Grai Izuku set the weights down on the bar, his arms going slack and hanging by his sides, only shaking for the rapid beating of his heart. Good job, man. Ijiro grabbed Izuku by the back of his sweaty shirt and lifted him up easily. You're going to be swole by the time we hit high school. Izuku was plopped down to stand on his own 2 feet in the gym. He was wearing one of his worn-out All Might brand workout shirts patterned after one of his costumes. Ijiro had decided to be one of the guys who did his workouts shirtless, and if someone complained, he just threw on a black tank top. I'm not trying to get swole, though. Swole is the goal, my guy. Ijiro poked his finger at Izuku's core, the boy wincing from contact. Today was their maxing day, and they were doing everything. Izubro, you haven't been following the diet, have you? I'm eating healthy. I just eat some other things alongside what I need. Bro, Ijiro squished Izuku's arm. If you want her muscles to be cut, you gotta cut the sweets out. If Eri wants me to have a bite or two of whatever she's eating, I'm not stopping her. You really can't say no to her, can you? Can you? All right, you make a fair point. But no one's going to see your abs if you have that layer of fat over them. I don't want people to see me shirtless. Look, I get why you're following the hero program to AT. It helps get your body in shape and make it look good for heroics, but I'm not going into that. I like being healthy, but it's not my goal to have my muscles look good, just be good for when I need them. Ijiro grumbled, his bro obviously having good points. It was still disappointing that Izuku didn't share his goal to be the swollest guys around, but it's not like his diet could be perfect either. It took a long time when he got his new crystal powers to figure out what he should consider healthy for him to eat. Turns out, his body used up more minerals than your average Joe, including silicon in specific forms. So instead of sugary snacks, he would take a bite out of some crystal quartz. Nothing in his diet. So far, he could visibly see change his level of cut. He being made of literal rock now, so there was no layer of fat to burn. There might be certain layers to him, but he wasn't sure how it worked. His plan was just to be as healthy as he could be and make his muscles look the best, and he couldn't force his lifestyle on Izuku. Okay, I won't push any farther. Ijiro gave in. I'm gonna go max some squats. The green-haired boy just nodded, heading to one of the vending machines to get a sports drink. Yeah, he would go for the All Might brand, but it tasted funky to him. Instead, he went for Maruko's after workout. He wasn't sure exactly what was in it, only that it was what the heroine herself came up with for her own routine. When companies try to substitute parts of it or add in some sweeteners, she kicked their asses. Literally, once they pitched the idea, she kicked their ass right there yelling at them. The footage somehow got leaked and spread like wildfire. Taking a chug of the cold beverage, he felt life return to him. Even if it didn't taste the best, his body felt brand new after. He took a glance at Ijiro, who was using one of the quirk-made machines and squatting with a huge bar on his shoulders. On each side were a couple 500-pound weights. He must be lifting at least a metric ton with no spotter. A while back he got yelled at about safety and stuff, but when Ijiro demonstrated how tough he was by slamming a plate on his face, it got them to believe the boy. Yeah, he was going to be a super awesome hero. I'm sorry, but I don't get what you're trying to say. Izuku turned to look at the desk towards the front. There was an annoyed employee there speaking to a girl with long blonde hair, large blue eyes, 2 tall horns on the side of her head, and unique-looking shoes. Her attire was a simple button-up yellow flannel and tight jeans with a large duffel bag on her back. A mutation quirk of some kind, giving her slight features of an oxen. It was hard to tell from how slight the quirk affected her appearance. Just enough to know she had a mutation and weight. Was it also because she seemed American he would have to get closer to double-check if it was because of a quirk or from lineage? Maybe his first step was to stop staring. Good plan. Please, I just need directions to the train station. Train station. Accent was American. Cool. That narrows it down as he pretends to be reading the nutritional value of his drink. I don't speak hamburger. Wow, that sounded pretty rude. She just needed directions to the train station. Izuku wished he could help, but he didn't speak English. Smack. Izuku rubbed the sore spot of his cheek that he just slapped for being an idiot. Ignoring the odd stare of a couple powerlifters who just saw him abuse himself, he approached the counter. Excuse me, he asked, gaining the attention of both girl and guy. I think I can help. Izuku put on his best smile, feeling the corners of his mouth start to twitch and wobble. He was bad at smiling on command, unless it was an All Might impression. The girl's eyes sparkled, grabbing his hands and giving him a wide grin. You speak English, oh thank All Might. I thought that I wouldn't have a problem with the language barrier moving here, since English is taught as a class, but I haven't met anyone who actually knows more than hello. Oh boy, she was close. Luckily, she granted him his personal space soon and let go of his hands. Yeah, Izuku started. Not many people know how to actually speak it. It's more common to find people who read and write it, though. Ahem. The man beckoned their attention with a not-so-discreet cough. She doesn't speak Japanese, dude.